Every day in the USA, people find themselves in court.
We are ready to resume the Gman case, is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
I believe we had finished with your first witness and you are putting on your proof, Ms. Hendrickson, so you may call your next witness.
Your Honor, I would like to call Miss Barbara Gman. Good morning. How are you? Thank you for being here today. I know you've come a long ways. If you could state your name for the record.
Barbara Gman.
Okay. And where do you live?
I live in Florida, Satsuma, Florida.
Okay. And
Pull that microphone base towards her so that she can, all right.
and you are Brian's grandmother, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And have you been around Brian and Tony before they got married?
Yes, I was.
Okay. And then have you been around Pearson and the couple?
I have.
Okay. Tell us the circumstances around you being around Pearson and the parents.
We've only gone to visit them 4 times, and they came to visit us once.
Okay.
And they seemed to get along fine. The only interaction that I didn't like was when Pearson, when he was 18 months old, he threw a block and hit his mom in the head, and his mom got very angry, and she reached over and she smacked his hand and she picked him up and whacked his butt.
Where did this happen? Can you give us
We were sitting in the living room, and she was knitting a hat, and I was sitting on the couch watching
whose house
them.
was it? I'm sorry.
This was in Brian and Tony's house.
Okay. And you said that Pearson was about how old
At
again?
18 months old.
Okay.
And I thought it was inappropriate at 18 months old.
Okay.
I also found it inappropriate in, said it, March. It was cold.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter how cold it was, Pearson is running around in just a t-shirt and a diaper. And we went to the park and no jacket. Even yesterday, we went to visit Pearson.
Well, let me go back to that first situation where you were all in the park. When was that? Do you recall?
No, I don't recall. It was cold out though.
Okay.
And Tony and I took Pearson to the park in the afternoon.
Okay.
And it was chilly, and he didn't even have a sweater on, just his shirt. Also, when he was 18 months old, he was hardly eating, and he was eating solid food, but he was hardly eating anything. And when I said something, they said, well, he breastfeeds. But every mother knows that you have to start food with a child, or he'll hate it the rest of his life, or he'll develop allergies.
Mm-hmm.
And they just weren't she just wasn't feeding him properly.
Okay. So you talked about that incident in the park, and then you were going to talk about another situation.
Yes, Pearson and myself and Tony were going to Walmart, and I went to get in the car, and she had a gun sitting out on the space between the 2 seats.
Okay.
And I looked at her and I said, what's that there for? And she said, oh, that's for protection. And she stuck it in the side compartment of the door.
In the side compartment?
Of the door.
Okay.
And
All
I
right.
thought,
And where was Pearson at that moment?
She was putting him in his car seat.
Okay. Did that ever happen again?
No.
Okay. When was the last time you saw Pearson yesterday? Is that right?
Yes, I did.
How long did you see him?
I only saw him for an hour and a half. That's all she would give us.
Okay. And then the last time that we were here, that was August, were you able to have some time with Pearson?
Yes.
Okay.
No, wait a minute. No, we didn't see. We didn't have any time with Pearson because she wanted us to go up to her house to visit with him. She refused to take him to the church. And we felt that they're dragging him to the ground, doing everything they can to destroy him. And we just were not going to put ourselves in a position where we were going to be in a house where these things were taking place.
Okay.
So we didn't go visit him.
And you said that you suggested to meet at the church. Is that the same church where the supervised visits are
Yes.
currently ongoing?
Yes.
Okay. And you said that she refused that. And did you came from Florida at that time too as
Yes.
well? Is it fair to say that you have a pretty close relationship with Pearson before all this happened?
Well, as close as can be, considering we've only seen him 4 times.
Right. Well, would you have any phone calls with him, FaceTime?
Yes, whenever Brian has Pearson, he calls us and puts us on
The FaceTime.
FaceTime, and we talk to Pearson and
Okay.
interact with him.
Is this during the time that they were living together?
No, this was when he was having visitation nights.
Oh, okay, at the church.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
And that's not particularly the best place because we dumped the toys out the other day and a roach came out
At the church.
at the church.
Okay. Have you and Tony had a conversation just between you and her at any
Yes,
point
we
in
did.
time? What was the conversation about?
That she was unhappy with her marriage and that Brian didn't spend enough time with her. And I told her if she's not happy, she had the option to leave him. But I also told her that my husband was the same way when we first got married and we first had children, and that he'd outgrow it, and that married him for better or for worse, and maybe she should just give him time to grow up.
Okay. Did you ever tell her that you can't stand Brian and that she should leave him?
I
don't
never
object to
told her
leaving.
that I couldn't stand Brian. Brian is my favorite
Ma'am, there's an
grandchild.
objection. When the lawyers makes an objection, if you'll stop talking, let me hear what the objection is to leading, sustain the objection, don't lead a witness.
Okay. What else was talked about in that? And well, first of all, when was that conversation? Do you recall?
Yeah, I believe was when we last saw them in March of,
This year or when? What year?
I guess this year.
Okay. So was there anything else that you told her aside from you having the option, let's see if he will outgrow it, or is there anything else that you told her about that?
Not that I can recall.
Okay. Have you been to Brian's apartment,
Yes, I
the
have.
current one?
Mhm.
I'm gonna show you some photos. Yes, I only have one copy. I thought I got 2 copies. I gave you. If you can take a look at those pictures.
That's his apartment.
Okay. So in your opinion, is it suitable for a child?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Can you just describe a little bit what it looked like to you when you were there?
A little messier, but otherwise it looked just like this.
Okay. So I already asked, so you feel like it is suitable for a child like Pearson?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Judge, I would like to admit that as an exhibit. Was it number 3 or 6? Oh,
Exhibit 6, okay.
okay. Have you ever seen Brian and Tony get into an argument or anything like that?
Yes.
Okay.
It was a minor one. It was, I was awake, don't know why. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning. And Brian was getting ready to go to work. And he went in the refrigerator to get his lunch, which Tony usually makes for him. Tony forgot to make it. And so he said, "You don't have anything else to do? Why can't you make me my lunch? Now I'm going to be late."
Okay.
Because he had to make his lunch before he left.
Mhm.
But other than that, I haven't heard them arguing.
Okay. Did Tony answer back, or it's 3 in the morning? Is that right? So okay. Was there
I'm sure
any...
she did, but I don't remember what she said.
Okay. All right. How would you describe Brian as a father to Pearson?
He loves Pearson. He dotes on Pearson. I think he would give his life for Pearson.
Is he attentive to Pearson?
Yes, he is.
Do you see him play with Pearson?
Yes.
Have you seen him change diapers?
Yes.
Have you seen him, I can't remember if I asked you, feed Pearson?
Judge, I would object to the leading again. It's kind of a multiple choice.
I'll strike that.
You can't state what you want them to say and then ask them to agree. That's leading. Sustain the objection.
What else have you seen with Brian and Pearson's interaction?
Seen him playing with his little tractor or whatever it is that he drives around the property where they used to live. And I've seen him holding him and
Okay. Are there any other concerns that you have on both sides as far as being a parent to Pearson?
as far as being a parent, not really. I think that Tony's a little sharp with him sometimes.
What do you mean when you say sharp sometimes?
She gets angry with him.
Okay.
But
How does that show when she gets angry?
she'll yell.
Okay. What kind of language does she use when she yells?
Only something's appropriate for a little kid.
Okay. Is there anything else? How does her anger show?
She'll just grab him and tell him, to behave, and that's all.
Okay. I'll pass the witness, Your Honor. Thank you, Mrs.
Mr.
Graham.
Holly, you may cross-examine.
Thank you, Judge. So, Ms. Gramman, my name is Reese Holly. Testified about all the, I guess, discipline or whatever that Ms. Gramman, Tony Gramman, had given. Out of all of the issues, I think it was you had with her and being sharp and things of that nature, did you ever, never called the police? There was never any filing with DCS? You never felt like it ever got to any level like that, did you?
No.
Overall, she's a pretty good mother with Pearson. Would you say that?
Yeah.
You spent time at their house, and you said, I think you said, they went one time down to Florida to visit you.
Yes.
When did they come visit you? Did they have Pearson in?
No, they didn't have Pearson when they came to visit us. She was pregnant.
That was some time back. And then you have visited them, what do you say, 3-4 times since?
Yes.
Since then? How many?
I'm not sure if it was 3 or 4.
Okay. Of the times that you were there, how many times did you visit them when Pearson was there?
He was there all the time.
Okay, so he'd been born in and you guys were
Yes.
you guys were there.
We were there at their first house, their second one, and their third one.
Yeah. And how often did you stay there? How many nights?
We'd stay there for a week.
Okay, so fair to say then you spent from the time the child's born maybe 3 or 4 weeks there,
Yes.
and that's all.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about Brian Gramman just for a minute.
Okay.
I'll refer to him as Mr. Gramman. So, what do you know about his history as far as drugs and alcohol are concerned?
He's never taken drugs. And he's not an alcoholic. He doesn't drink much at all.
What do you know about his history as far as counseling goes and mental issues?
I know he was in counseling when he was like 5 years old.
Okay.
And it stopped when he was like 6 or 7.
All right, and that's all you know.
And that's all I know.
He didn't tell you anything else.
No, but he lived with my daughter, and we were there, a lot more than we were with them, and I raised him for the first 2.5 years of his life.
Mm-hmm. But that's all you know about his, again, mental issues, counseling, propensity for violence. That's all you know, correct?
Mm-hmm.
What do you know about his criminal history?
I don't think he has a criminal history.
Okay.
He,
You don't think he has any criminal history at all?
I know he was in jail briefly.
Well, ma'am, that's what I'm asking about. So what do you know about that?
I don't actually,
All right. So you didn't,
but I know.
I thought you guys were pretty close, but you didn't find the time to go find out about his criminal history
I
and
don't
his reason
remember
for being
why.
in jail?
I don't remember why he was in jail.
All right. And you didn't ask?
Well, I did at the time. I knew at the time. I just don't remember.
So you don't remember today? Do you have a memory problem?
I do.
All right, I understand. If they were to say, or someone's told you that Mr. Graham had been in jail for 2 years, would you know anything about that?
No.
Well, you talked about visitation this time. Mrs. Graham and Tony Graham, and you've seen the child twice since you've been here.
Yes.
Not once, but twice, correct?
Twice.
Okay.
And I would have loved to interact with him more, but I fell in the shower the other day,
Oh, sorry to hear that.
and my knee and my toe are not exactly intact right now.
I understand, ma'am. May I see Exhibit 6, please? Yes, sir. I'd like to hand you this exhibit. You've already seen these pictures. You testified they were of Brian Graham's apartment that you've been to. And you're familiar with that apartment. And when did you go to
When
his
did I go?
apartment? Yes, ma'am. When did you go to his apartment?
Yesterday.
You were yesterday?
Yes.
Okay. And you didn't take those pictures though, did you?
No.
Okay. Is it fair to say there's like, to me, one thing that I looked at when I saw those, there's no sheets on the bed, correct?
Well, there are sheets on the bed now.
There's pictures, there's not any sheets on the bed, there's no wall hangings.
No,
I mean, there's really,
no, there's no wall hangings.
I mean, there's no, looks like, it just doesn't look like somebody's lived there. Is that fair enough with those pictures?
Yeah,
Are you familiar with this
It looks
place
like-
being a retreat for men?
yes,
Okay, and that's what they do as well, correct?
as well. I don't know if they still do. They have children there now. They go to school there. But as far as I know, they're not troubled children.
Whose children are they?
I'm told it's like $6,000 a month to send a child there.
But kids actually stay there and
And
they
the
go to
kids
school
actually
there.
stay there and go to school there, yes.
Yeah.
In fact, I saw them this morning and they look like a very nice bunch of kids.
Right, but if that was a retreat for troubled youth or something like that, you don't know anything about it.
I know it was a retreat for troubled youth when it started out.
Okay.
And they have had all kinds of monetary problems, and now they're trying to sell some of the houses.
If I have just a moment.
Right now, it's like empty except for a handful of boys that go to school there. And they have retreats on the weekends, and I guess that's what keeps them afloat.
How would you describe Brian Gman with his interactions that you know about? I mean, you're here to testify on behalf of Brian Gman, correct? How would you characterize Brian Gman as far as dealing with Tony Gman? Have you ever heard him to do anything out of line?
No, I haven't.
And the times that you spent there, how would you describe the way that he treats Tony Gman?
While we were there, he treated her fine. He had a habit of, when he got home from work, disappearing into the garage for a while to work on his cars. But then he'd come out, and there were no arguments or anything between them. They seemed to be okay. I think that maybe Tony felt that she was being, what's the word I'm looking for? Ignored, maybe, because he went into the garage, but and he didn't stay there all night. He did come out, and he worked all day, to support his family. He wanted the best for his family. So he spent a lot of time working. He'd leave early in the morning, and
You strike me as somebody that's pretty particular about how people should act with each other and how people should act around children. Is that a fair assessment?
yes.
I want to play for you a video where you kind of put into evidence. If I can,
Alex, you're gonna have to see if you can help
It's-
him with that.
it's an audio, I'm sorry. It's one of the audio recordings.
What is the purpose of this?
I'm going to play a little bit of this
I think I understand what you're
tackle
doing.
box situation and ask her if she's here to testify on his character. She said what she said. I'm going to ask her if she feels like this is
You really think that this man is going to use that kind of language that's demonstrated on that tape around his grandmother? Or that he's going to demonstrate some of the behaviors that he has demonstrated on those tapes in front of his grandmother?
I do not.
Right. Then what's the purpose in showing it? I don't either. So she's testified she's never observed it. I have observed it and heard it firsthand, and I'm the one who has to make the decision. I see nothing to be gained by embarrassing this lady or having her listen to something that's obviously could change how she feels about her grandson. There's no point in that. So I think at this point, I accept her testimony for what it is, a grandmother who loves her grandson and thinks he's a good boy and a good young man, and I accept it for that. She doesn't know everything, just like my grandmother didn't know everything about me. I only had one. My grandmother died when my mother was 5, but my own mother didn't know a lot of things about me that I would say probably, because we don't demonstrate all of the time in front of that. But you have made an ample showing of behavior by Mr. Gman on those tapes and things, and I see nothing to be gained by forcing this lady to listen to it.
I understand. It wasn't my intent to try to embarrass him with her or her with him. It's just that this is a character witness. And my last question for her would be, if you actually had experienced this, what would you say now about Mr. Graham? And I think the court would answer that question based on what you're saying. So
I just don't see anything to be gained by it. Obviously, her credibility is based upon what she knows, what she's seen, and she hasn't seen or heard everything.
yes, sir. So you brought up something about making lunch.
Right.
That Tony Gramman hadn't made Brian Gramman's lunch when he was ready to go to work in the morning. And she normally would do that,
Right.
is your understanding. And somehow or another, she had failed to make lunch, and he was saying some things about it at 3 a.m. at that point, correct? And when was this?
I think it was not the last time we were there, but the time before.
I mean, I don't know when that is. Was it like a year or two ago? Was that fair
It
enough?
was, yeah,
Okay. Is he capable of making his own lunch in a situation like that?
yes, and he did.
I mean, you apparently were
He
up. You
was
could have
just
made lunch.
angry
He could
that
have
she
made lunch.
stays home all day with the child, and he goes to work, and he thinks that she should be able to do certain things that are helpful to him.
And she had been, correct? I mean, she made his lunch, as far as you know,
Yes.
on a routine daily basis.
Yeah,
And she
just-
forgot this one time, correct?
Just forgot, yes.
And he had a big deal to say about it, didn't he?
Well, not a big deal, but he was angry.
And Pearson was there at that time,
Kirsten was sleeping at that time.
trying to sleep at that time?
Was sleeping, I think, at that time.
Nothing further. Thank you, Judge.
Ms. Henderson, any questions?
Did you, do you recall Brian coming home drunk, Annie?
No.
Okay. And that's all I have, Your Honor.
Right. Thank you, ma'am. You may step down. Ms. Hendrickson, you may call your next witness.
My next one is in Zoom. It'll be William Mcderman.
Would that be Billy M?
Yes, Your Honor.
I've admitted him. I'm asking him to unmute and turn on his camera.
I'm trying to figure out the camera.
All right. Would you state your name for us?
William Patrick Mcderman.
All right. Raise your right hand. Let me place you under oath. You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this case to be the truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I swear.
All right. Thank you. You can put your hand down and spit out your gum. Ms. Hendrickson, he is your witness. You may ask.
Mr. McDerman, how are you related to any of the parties, Mr. and Mrs. Gramman?
Brian is my cousin, but we were raised in the same household as brothers.
Okay. And have you been around Mr. and Mrs. Gramman? Any?
Yeah, I've been around them.
Okay. Have you been around them also with their child, Pearson?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Tell us on what occasion was that when you were around Pearson in the parties?
It was around the winter time going into spring, around February.
Okay.
That
Was
was
that
the
this
last
year?
time
Okay.
yes, it was.
Okay. And where was that?
That was at my house in New York.
Okay. So they visited you there, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Did they stay with you or did they stay in a hotel?
They stayed with my family and me, yes, in the house.
Okay. And how long were they there for? You recall?
4 days.
Okay. And can you just describe what your observations are as far as Mrs. Gramman to the child Pearson?
She was nice most of the time to the baby, but she was also very harsh whenever the baby had to be put down, changed, fed. She got very frustrated a lot with that type of stuff.
Can you be a little bit more specific? What does it look like being frustrated?
Her facial expressions changed, her whole demeanor, her body. She just seems very tense and angry.
Okay. And what kind of language does she use whenever that happens?
She would use, normal language, but every now and then she would curse.
Do you remember what specific curse words?
She would say fuck. That was mainly the big one.
Okay. And was she directing that to the child?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And how many times did that happen? Do you remember?
Only a couple times.
Okay. And so that was this last year. I know Pearson is only 2 years old, so did you ever have any other occasions where you have observed um, Mr. and Mrs. Gramman with Pearson?
The only other time was when my family we went down to Tennessee for a while, for 5 days. I stayed with Brian one night, and the other nights I stayed in a hotel.
Okay. And when you stayed there at the Gramman's home, what did you observe as far as Brian's interaction with Pearson?
Oh, he was very loving. He smiling. He always hired his voice in a higher octave to make Pearson smile all the time and everything.
Okay. What else did you observe with Brian's interaction with Pearson?
He was always picking him up, being really playful and gentle with him.
Okay. Have you ever seen him change diapers?
I have not.
Okay. Any other observations as far as taking care of Pearson that you have observed?
He would help put Pearson down for bed or for a nap all the time.
Okay. And was there any incidents of Tony using foul language in that instance?
When they were up at my house, when she was changing the baby, while Brian was running to the 7-Eleven, that's up the street from our house, I came inside from taking the trash out, and there's a spare bedroom that she was changing Pearson in. and she was really frustrated because Pearson wouldn't stop crying. And she said, shut the fuck up, or I'm going to give you something to cry about.
Okay.
And she seemed just completely frustrated, she seems really tense.
Were there any other incidents when in New York? Because you're back in New York, right? This is in New York.
Yes.
Okay.
There was one other time where I heard Tony speaking foully to the baby.
Okay, can you be more specific on that one?
Yeah. So Pearson again had to be fed. He had to be fed, and he wouldn't stop crying. And Tony, under her breath, she went, "Shut the fuck up," because yet again she just seemed really just annoyed that she had to do something with him.
Okay. Is there anything else that you have observed while you and your family were visiting in Tennessee?
No, that was the only instances that I've ever seen or anything.
Have you observed Tony and Brian having any type of arguments?
There was always a couple arguments, but they were never serious, yelling, anything like that.
Okay. I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Mr. Holly is
you.
going to ask you some questions, so if you'll bear with us, please.
William Gman, my name is Reese Holly. So when was this that they visited you and you observed this? When was that?
This was around February of the same year,
February of what year, please?
2023.
Okay. Did you, when they were there yourself, when you witnessed these things you talked about, the police weren't called, you guys never called social services, it wasn't anything to ever be at that level, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Did you ever change a diaper or
No.
anything with the child?
Nope.
And you testified you never saw Mr. Gramman ever change a diaper?
Yes, that's correct.
And that primarily Mrs. Gramman was the one that was taking care of the child?
With changing and feeding, yeah.
Yeah. You think part of her frustration came because she wasn't getting any help?
It could be. I don't know.
When you were there, is it accurate that you and Brian Gramman did a lot of stuff while he was there with you?
Yeah.
I mean, she testifies y'all stayed out of the residence quite a bit. Y'all were doing things, and she was there with Pearson. Is that a fair assessment?
No. No, we were only out one time with each other. I don't remember what we were doing, but every other time Tony and the baby were there, we were with them. So.
What do you know about Brian Gramman and his issues with mental health and his history with mental health treatment?
I'm going to object. That's not in evidence that he's got mental health issues or anything like that.
He's asking him a question that doesn't require that there be evidence of it in first questions or questions regarding such an issue or whether this man knows anything about it or not. He can testify whether he knows it or not. Overruled.
Yeah.
Mr. Holly, repeat the question.
We got a lot of Grammans here. So Mr. William Gramman, you go by William Gramman?
William Mcderman.
All right. Mr. William Gramman, what do you know as far as Mr. Brian Gramman's history of mental health issues, anger issues, and his treatments that he's had over the years?
Growing up, he didn't have any mental health issues that I'm aware of. Even to this day, I still don't know if he even has any mental health problems. We've never touched basis on that point, but growing up, there was a little bit of anger problems. He went to therapy when he was younger to help that, and that worked a lot. Otherwise, after that, I don't know anything of what he's done with that.
What do you know about Mr. Brian Gramman and his issues with law enforcement?
I don't really know much about it. My parents kept it a secret when I was a kid. They kept it disclosed because they didn't want me knowing about anything, I guess, or being involved.
So you know nothing about him doing any sort of jail time?
I know that he did do jail time for 2 years.
All right. Well, you didn't bring that up a minute ago, but you do know about 2 years of jail time, correct?
Yes.
And you didn't feel like that was an answer to the question about the law enforcement question I asked previously?
I wasn't thinking about it. I'm sorry.
I don't have anything else.
Redirect.
You muffled out.
The Mr.
It
Gramman.
muffled out a little bit. I couldn't hear you.
All right, Mr. Gramman's lawyer has some other questions apparently.
Did you know that he was a juvenile when
Alright.
he was in jail?
No.
Okay, that's all, Your Honor.
Thank you. You can terminate your participation if you'd like. So, all right, Ms. Hendrickson, you may call your next witness.
I'd like to call Mr. Herbert Gman.
You step around here where the bailiff is and let him direct you, please.
Good morning.
Morning,
Could you state your name for the record, please?
Herbert C. Gramman.
Okay, and how are you related to Mr. Gramman?
He's our grandson.
Okay, and so we have a minor child here, your great-grandson, Pearson. Have you been around Pearson and the Grammans?
Oh, we visited him 3 times in the last year,
Okay,
and we saw Pearson yesterday and Monday.
okay. Have they been to Florida as well to visit you?
Yes, they have.
Okay. Tell me the first visit that you mentioned, your first visit here to Tennessee, was Pearson already born at the time?
Yes.
Okay. Tell me what were your observations as far as Brian to Pearson?
We saw no aggravation. They were lovey. They played together, and I never seen anything with them.
Okay. How old would Pearson be at the time? That first visit, can you recall?
The first visit,
Mm-hmm.
it was in their first duplex house they had,
Okay.
and it's got to be probably 3 years ago.
How old? So was Pearson born? He wouldn't have been born then.
He was born a little while ago.
Okay.
Before that,
Okay.
I mean, I have pictures on my phone where I'm holding him in my arm as a baby.
Okay. So he was an infant.
Yeah,
at
he
that
was an
time.
infant. He couldn't walk. Or he couldn't do
Okay.
anything.
So did you have you seen Brian change diapers at all?
Yes,
Okay. Have you seen Brian be attentive?
yes.
Okay. So the second time that you visited, how old would Pearson be?
No, the last time he was 18 months, so I guess he was about 11, 12 months old.
Okay. What can you recall as far as Brian's interaction with Pearson?
Well, to be honest with you, it was very good. But it's much better now because he calls him daddy, and I noticed that the last 2 days.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
they're very close.
Okay. What about Tony, the mother, Mrs. Gramman, towards Pearson?
Well, I only visited one time, saw her hit him,
Okay.
and I knew nothing why it was until she came back.
Can you give me more specifics?
We were sitting
Where
on the-
was this? Which home?
This was the last house.
The last house
The
before
last
they
one.
separated?
Yes.
Okay.
I was sitting on the couch, which I do a lot of now, watching TV. And Pearson was on the floor. My wife was next to me. Tony was in the corner showing us how she makes these hats.
Okay.
And the next thing I know is she jumps up. She slaps his hand, spanks his bottom, and takes off either into the kitchen or the bedroom. And I, meantime, never knew what was going on. Then she came back into the room and went to Pearson and said, "Don't you ever throw anything at your mother again." And that's when I realized she must have, an 18-month-old baby must have picked up something on the floor and threw it at her.
Okay. What was your opinion on it? Was it a little too extreme for you for in that age?
Yes.
Okay. What was the volume of the voice? Was it
Loud.
low, loud, loud? Okay. And then so that you said that was from the last home.
Yeah.
Do you have any other observations with all these visits? I know we're going back and forth.
No, not really.
Okay. What about in Florida when they visited?
They had a great time and it was fantastic.
Okay. As far as you can recall, what's your impression of Brian towards the care of Pearson by him?
I think he's changed a lot.
Okay.
He's done a lot of good things in his life lately. Things that we harped on him for years.
Okay.
And I think he's going to make something good of himself.
Okay.
He has a good job and he's doing very well. So
Okay. Have you ever seen Brian and Tony get into an argument?
no,
Have you ever seen Brian come home drunk whenever you all visited?
no,
Ever seen Brian be physical with Pearson?
Judge,
No.
I'll object to the leading. I'll let a couple questions go.
And you'll lead the witness.
You got any observations that concerned you as far as Brian is concerned towards Pearson?
no.
Okay. Did you know Tony to own a gun?
Yeah,
Are there any incidents where it was concerning to you as far as guns are concerned?
no.
Okay.
And the only time I heard about one was hearsay, so
Okay.
I never saw it.
Is there anything else that you would like to add as far as the parenting skills of the parents here?
Well, I would probably say, probably both would have made great parents, but Brian's changed his life around a heck of a lot in the last year, and we've been harping on him for 4 years now about things and 5 years about things. And out of the clear blue, all of a sudden, he took care of that stuff, and I didn't think he'd ever do it.
Right. And when did that happen?
Oh, that happened.
Started
That
happening?
happened when he was a youngster.
No, I mean the change. When
The change?
when did the change started happening?
I guess maybe about 6, 7 months ago, 8 months ago,
Okay.
because we kept harping on him, you got to get a driver's license.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, I ain't going to pay those fines from New York.
Right.
So the next thing I know is He's got a Tennessee driver's license and he paid, I don't know, $11,000 fine to Suffolk County. And he's got a driver's license and he's
Right,
got a motorcycle license now. And I thought that was great.
okay. Is there any other changes that you know about?
No.
Okay. I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Holly, you have questions?
Yes, sir. Mr. Graham, I'm Reese Holly. What do you know of his history that was, again, to me, sounding like there were a lot of issues here? You didn't think he would ever do it. What do you know about Brian Graham and his history? And I'm talking about alcohol, drugs, mental health, incarceration. What do you know about that?
Well, I don't know nothing about that really. Okay, mental health? That was never mental health that I know of. Okay, incarceration? He was never in prison.
Do you curse?
Do I curse?
Yeah.
Not normally, but I see in Tennessee, everybody does.
I'm sorry, repeat that.
I see here in Tennessee, everybody seems to use that four-letter word when they talk. Do I? No.
So if Mrs. Graham, talking about Tony Graham, and testifies that you've used wholly inappropriate language to her and the child, she's not telling the truth?
No, she is not telling the truth.
How old is Pearson right now?
How old is he now?
Yes, sir.
I guess two something, 21 months, something like
21
that.
months. All right.
I don't keep track. I don't remember dates and stuff like that ever since my stroke. So.
I don't have anything else, Judge.
Redirect. Thank you, sir. You may stand down. You can have a seat in the courtroom and you can leave. Ms. Hendrickson, we have 10 minutes. You got a witness for 10 minutes?
Yes, Your Honor. I would call my client, but then,
We're not going to start your client at 10 till. We'll go ahead and break for lunch. And what I would suggest you do is, if you're going to call these other witnesses, you contact them and have them come in on Zoom. Be here at 1:15 when we resume, and we'll go from there. Ms. Hendrickson, you have your witnesses lined up?
Yes, Your Honor. I'm only gonna call my, my client.
Okay. Then there's a David Arnold in the waiting room, so we're going to
He may be excused, Your Honor.
just let them know that they don't need to stay. All right.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, then we're ready for Mr. Graham to come forward. Mr. Graham, if you'll come forward, please, face the clerk and raise your right hand. Now, let me take up one matter. We had a hearing that was set for this afternoon with Ms. Duke and you, is that correct? Have you talked, that was Ms. Duke? Ms. Duke, with one of the parties in this case, they spent 4 hours yesterday on one witness. I don't anticipate they will finish before 4 o'clock today. Ms. Roberts and Mr. Bates have the Marlin case that's set tomorrow especially. But I spoke with Ms. Roberts yesterday, and she indicated that if one of our cases today roll over into tomorrow, that they would understand. Do you have anything tomorrow?
I have a CLE scheduled that is it's by Zoom. The CLE is,
You can do that while we're having the hearing.
since it's the ethics workshop, probably.
on
I'll-
YouTube right now.
I'll do what the court wants me to do.
I don't want to knock you out of
think-
your CLE if you're like most folks, you're trying to get it done before the end of the year.
If it's one I can go back and watch, I don't mind to do it over the weekend. I just don't know if it's one I can go back and watch, or if I have to be there, if I have to be live and put in codes as they go through it.
Would you like to check on that while we're taking this matter up? And then when you come back in, if you'll flag me down, I'll let you know you can let me know what you found out, so.
I'll be happy to find out.
All right. Mr. Hawley, you've also filed a motion for a restraining order, ex parte restraining order, in a case that I've heard for you that has a lawyer on the other side. I'm very highly reluctant to sign orders that suspend visitation orders without giving the other side an opportunity. And my suggestion would be that even if I signed it, I would have to set it for a very, very close hearing. When Ms. McKinney returns, we need to see about a date when we can have that heard, so. All right. Thank you. You may go ahead and question your witness.
Mr. Graham, state your full name for the record.
Brian Scott Graham Jr.
Okay. And where do you currently reside?
I currently reside in Smithville, Tennessee.
I'm going to show you a bunch of documents here. Can you tell me who is Jonathan Hempel?
He is the director of the children's school on the property where I reside.
Okay. Your Honor, I have an affidavit of Mr. Hempel. It's attesting to what the facility is about, and I would like to proffer it. It's got a signature and a notary on the document.
I'd fully object. I can't cross-examine a piece of paper, so. We've already had issues.
Even if it's an affidavit, it is, unless it meets an exception to the hearsay rule, it is hearsay, and therefore, in the face of an objection, I must sustain it, unless you have some exception to the hearsay rule that I'm not aware of.
Not at the moment, Your Honor. Maybe able to think of one later.
It was worth a try.
Thank you. You can look at that and identify what that document.
This is the lease agreement for the property I reside on.
Okay. If you can turn to the page that talks about restrictions, I think it's over at the last page. If you can read that to the court, please.
It says tenant must comply with the following: maintaining employment, no guests without prior approval, and no drugs, alcohol, or tobacco on the premises.
Okay. And if you were to have Pearson, is he going to be permitted to stay with you there?
Most certainly. He's actually named somewhere in this document as my child, and they've given consent. That's the main reason I live there, is for Pearson.
Okay. How much do you pay in rent for that apartment?
$1,000.
Okay. Explain to the court, much has been talked about that Timothy Hill community. Explain to the court, what is it?
So currently, the Timothy Hill program in Tennessee at this location is more or less, it's a private school. It's kids from all over the country that needed, not exactly sure what the need was in their parents. I can't speak to that, but they designated this good place for their kids to reside. The kids are ranged, I believe, from 13 to 15, and they go to private school on the property, and they all live condensed in one of the homes on the property about a quarter mile away from mine. I have no interaction with the children in the program, so I cannot speak too much to that.
Do you know of any delinquent kids, children from DCS being placed in
I'm
that?
object to the leading. This is like a multiple choice question again.
Sustained, you'll lead the witness.
Okay. Tell me about, there was testimony about you being a part of the program. Were you a part of the program when you met your wife?
No, ma'am, I was not. I was an intern in the Tennessee facility, a groundskeeper and a maintenance technician. I would have been a maintenance technician for about 3 months for them before I had moved on to J&S Construction Group out of Cookeville, Tennessee. And I stayed with them for about a year.
Okay. While we're on that subject, just get a little bit of history from you. You're from New York, is that right?
That is correct.
And testimony was provided about you being in jail there. Can you explain to the judge that situation?
Most certainly. So What had happened was I was just 18 and I was in my aunt and uncle's house when I was not supposed to be. They were on vacation in Florida. And I pretty much I got charged with a form of burglary. However, I got a youthful adjudication on it through New York State. It got dropped down to a burglary 2 sealed. I'm on great terms with my aunt and uncle, the owners of the home. It was a mistake. I was throwing a party. I shouldn't have been throwing a party in the house, and everybody there got some form of trespass or burglary because
So you threw a party in your uncle's house?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Were there weapons involved?
So the charge originated as possession of a gravity knife, and they considered that a weapon in New York State. Like I said, I did not take, my record's clean. There's nothing on my criminal record.
Are there records that I can get a hold of if I want to see these charges and all those things?
I believe I have some documents personally. However, for anybody else to find them, what I was told is that's an impossible task to do because of the adjudication. That's something I chose to share with my wife before we got married, to be completely upfront and, build a life together, But no, as far as I know, there's absolutely no way to access that information.
And so how long did you stay in jail?
Ms. Henderson, hold on for a second. We should finish that sentencing hearing by lunchtime, shouldn't we?
Oh, yeah.
That's all we have on that day.
Yeah.
We can set them at 1:30. Charlie, 1:30 on the 21st.
Thank you, Judge.
All right,
Thank you, Ms. Duke.
Ms. Henderson, you may proceed.
How long were you there for in jail for that situation?
I was incarcerated for a period of less than 2 years, mainly for my own inability to want to comply with the things that were being told to me. Initially, it was no jail time, go home. Well, not go home, but go to Timothy Hill and complete their program, and I would get the youthful offender status. I wasn't ready at the time to subject myself to that, and I chose to serve the time. I served the time, and I was issued a YO through Judge Camacho of the Suffolk County Courts. At that point in time, Timothy Hill had reached out to me, impressed with the things I did during the short period of time where I was trying to do the program, and they offered me an internship down here as one of their maintenance technicians because they'd recently lost a couple.
Okay, so you were an intern. Were you also part of the program?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And then so you said you interned for 3-4 months and then you moved on to a different job. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. So I internshiped with them for a few months, and in those few months, I'd actually gotten engaged to Tony. Wanted to build a life together, and they said that they were not open to her living on the property with me. So what I had done is I went and I got a townhouse in Cookville, and I would also already think shortly before I got engaged to Tony, I started working for J&S Construction because it was a better pay rate than my internship was going to be.
Okay. How old was Tony when you all started dating?
Tony's a little bit more than a year and a half older than me. So when we started dating, I'd have been 20, so she was probably 21, maybe 22.
Okay. And so was there alcohol involved in your stay at the Timothy Hill?
I've never drunk on the property. However, there was times where we'd go out and rent a jet ski and, we'd drink. She would provide the alcohol. I wasn't old enough to buy it at the time. There was one instance in specific where I drank quite a bit out on a houseboat while she was jet skiing with one of the other females, and an argument ensued after the fact. But
So you're saying that because you were not old enough, your wife was then girlfriend, she was purchasing the alcohol because she was of age at the
yes,
time.
ma'am.
Okay. I want to talk to you about the recordings that were played. How did you feel when you heard those recordings?
Embarrassed, ashamed, disgusted. I mean, the list goes on and on. That's not the man I am. That's a very small glimpse into my life. And I was going through a lot. I had a lot of stress on my shoulders, and I was mad with her. I was angry with her. And the things we listened to, no. Did she cause all of them? No.
Okay.
But it
well,
added to it.
I'm sorry, yeah.
It added to it. And, I had a tendency to get mad at her over things that weren't really her fault. They weren't. I mean, I'd have a bad day at work, or I'd have a bad meeting. I had a lot of stress on my shoulders at that point, trying to wrap up the school I was working on. And at that point of those recordings, I was trying to finish a 2-year project, and I wasn't dealing with the stress very well. I'm ashamed of it.
Let's talk about the first one. Explain to the court, she had her version, and you heard her testimony about how the Dollar General situation happened. Can you explain how it happened?
Yes, ma'am, I can. So I had a celebratory golf outing and a prospective project meeting at the golf course in Nashville. I can't remember the course by name. However, after that, we'd gone to Fat Bottom in Nashville for dinner and some drinks. I was on my way home, coming down pretty much the main road through Dixon, and a woman pulled out in front of me to the point where I had to slam on my brakes to not hit her, not to slam into the rear of her car. And I was met with a finger and out the window and brake checking when I laid on my horn, because I held my horn down at that point in time. At the next opportunity in the straightaway, I got into the opposing lane and I passed her at an excessive rate of speed, not proudly. And I was on my way home. I decided to stop at the Dollar General about a few miles up the road from my house. I stopped at the Dollar General and I went in to buy a few items. And when I came out, the woman tried to confront me, and she was parked right alongside my car, yelling and screaming at me. At which point, I got back in my car without uttering a word to her and took off at what I'd consider probably a high rate of speed, not what I should have done. Upon getting home, I tried to tell Tony about the event that happened, and she told me that I had to go back to the Dollar General because we were almost out of milk. At that point, I got on my motorcycle. I rode up to Dollar General. The woman was no longer there, which you'll hear me say at the beginning of the recording. The woman wasn't there. Got the milk and came back home. At that point in time, I was in a pretty bad mood that I was made to go back to the store after I tried to explain to her that I just got into what could have been a bad altercation there. had I decided to argue or whatnot, it wouldn't have been good. Upon returning home with the milk, I was still in a pretty good mood from news I got at work that day and wanted to share that with her. And I got a little bit of a tendency to be exaggerative. And I exaggerated some of the events that happened that night.
Okay.
Never did I hurt anybody. Never did I threaten anybody. I made a mistake. It was a poor decision, is what it was. That entire afternoon was a poor decision.
Is there any criminal charges that have been leveled against you at any point in time after your jail stay in New York?
Absolutely not. I swore to myself when I came home that I would never end up back in handcuffs. I would never go back behind bars. That's not the man I wanted to be. I was a man that I came from a broken family. I didn't know my mom and dad growing up. I was raised by my aunt and uncle, and all I ever wanted was a family. I didn't care about being successful, and I mean, even that got a little away from me in the last couple of years. I got caught up in building a career, but in the end of the day, all I ever wanted was a child and a family.
Okay, I'm gonna show you a photo. Donor would like to enter the lease. If I
You
have
want him
it.
to identify them first and then have them marked as an exhibit?
Yeah, but the first one, the lease, I don't know if I entered it into exhibit. That one. That's the lease agreement.
Mark it as an
Okay.
exhibit.
And then Judge Wolfe has a copy for him on that. Can you look at that and what is that photo show?
This first photograph is a photograph of a double-doored locking ammunition cabinet that
Okay.
takes two separate keys to open up.
Where is that located?
It is hung on the wall in my bedroom on the
And-
property at Timothy Hill.
Okay, in your current apartment?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. The second photo, what is that?
The second photograph is my handgun and pistol safe. It's a numeric electronic safe that's actually bolted down to that nightstand below it. And that is where any handgun I'm not carrying resides. If it's not on my person, it's locked in that safe.
Okay, all right. And I would like to enter that as exhibit number 8.
Collected.
Now, I'm gonna talk to you about where do you currently work?
I work for Messer Construction Group out of the Nashville region.
Okay. And what do you do there?
I am a lead carpenter in training to be a foreman.
Okay. I'm going to show you this paycheck.
There you go. I'm good. Yep.
How much, what is your hourly rate there?
I'm not exactly sure without reference material. I would say in the high 20s.
Is $32 an hour accurate?
Quite possibly.
And how many hours do you work per week?
So this is showing my pay rate at $28 an hour.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think I read hours, but so your hourly rate is $28 an hour. And then did you answer the how many hours per week do you work?
I average anywhere between 30 and 40, 28 and 40. It kind of depends on what I got going on that week.
Okay. That's still pretty far apart. 20, did you say 20 to 40 hours?
28 to 40.
20. Okay. Is 30 hours more of a average for you?
Yes, ma'am. I'd say in the last 6 months, I've probably only had 3 or 4 40-hour weeks. Most of them have been typically 4 days long at 8 hours a day, or sometimes even less than that.
Okay, and what is your schedule typically?
I'm afforded the luxury to kind of assign the hours that need be. I can add extra hours to certain days or subtract hours for certain days due to what life
But just
entails for me.
Days of the week and time from this time to what time?
I typically work from 6 to 2:30, 5 days a week, unless I have another obligation that has to take precedence, and then I'll rearrange my schedule.
So you're off during the weekends?
That is correct.
Okay. And do you pay medical insurance for your wife and your son?
Yes, I cover the 3 of us on medical insurance, dental insurance, eye insurance, and I carry life insurance for myself.
Okay. And are you currently providing financial support to your wife and your child?
Yes, ma'am. I try to give her at least $100 weekly.
Okay. And you have a valid driver's license?
Yes, ma'am, I do. A motorcycle license as well as a Class D license for just a motor vehicle.
Okay. Just very briefly, tell the court, what did you have to do to obtain the driver's license?
Quite a bit of phone calls, a couple of different lawyers, and a large amount of money. I had it taken away at a young age in New York for not being able to pay for insurance. And with the interest and everything, as well as speeding tickets, it got to quite a large amount. But I've come to a point in my life where I need to do everything by the book. There is no flirting around it. There is no trying to avoid it. I have to sort things out, which is what I've been doing for the last 6 months.
Have you ever been pulled over for reckless driving or driving under intoxication?
No, I have not.
Okay. Do you have a carry permit for your handgun?
Yes, ma'am, I do have an enhanced concealed carry permit, valid in the state of Tennessee, as well as, I believe, 27 or 28 other states. I had to go through a fingerprint background check with the TBI as well as the Federal Bureau of Investigations to obtain it. I had to take an 8-hour handgun safety course. That was followed by a written test as well as a physical shooting test.
What does that document show?
This is a photograph of my handgun carry permit, which is in my license or my wallet currently.
Okay. Does it show when it was issued? Is it current?
It is current. It has an expiration date of 10/9/2031 and an issue date of 10/9/2023.
Okay. Mr. Gman, I'm gonna go back to the recordings. When were those recorded? Do you recall?
It was very briefly before our time of separation.
And when were you separated?
I believe that to be May. Like I said earlier, it was when I was trying to finish up that school in Bellevue, and
All right. And do you recall that day when she was leaving? What was your understanding? Where was she going?
to her parents' house. I watched our child while she was packing her bags,
So you were under the impression that she was going to her parents' home for good, or?
In the yelling from her towards me as things were transpiring, I wasn't really sure what was happening. I didn't know if we were just taking some time apart and we were going to work it out, which is what my hope was,
Okay.
or
Has she done it before where she left to go to her parents and then came back?
yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did you help her back?
I watched Pearson while she packed. I got her some of the suitcases down out of the shelf in the spare bedroom closet. I
Okay.
begged and pleaded to let's go get help. We both could use it. Let's not do this. And I was told some pretty horrific things, that I wouldn't see my child ever again, that she hasn't loved me in a long time, that her life was a constant hell. And I mean, I was heartbroken.
Okay. Anything else that you help her with packing?
Yeah, so I carried the bags out to the car for her. And then before she left, I made sure she took the .22 Smith & Wesson with her.
Okay.
God forbid she got into any kind of trouble. I insisted she at least take that gun with her.
Okay, so you handed her the 22 caliber. Who bought that 22?
I paid for it previous to our marriage,
And for what purpose?
for her to have a gun to keep with her at all times to protect her. I mean,
And did she have that gun where?
she'd either carry it in her vehicle or on her person. I mean, that was the intentive purpose of the weapon was, I mean,
What about in the house? Did she have access to that gun?
that gun and many others, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll show you a picture. You recognize that photo?
Yes, ma'am. This is my firearm display case, as well as I'd put collectible knives and other sentimental objects in it.
Which house is this located?
The most recent house of ours in Dixon. This was in our bedroom.
Okay. What do you observe up there at the very top? What is that?
That would be the .22 caliber Smith & Wesson. That was her handgun.
And who's responsible for keeping that gun safe?
She would be responsible for making sure that gun was safe and secured.
Okay. I would like to admit that into evidence, Your Honor.
Parker is the next exhibit in order.
Okay, let's talk about drug use. Have you ever used any illegal drugs?
Yes, ma'am, I have.
What kind?
Cannabis.
When was the last time you used it?
A few weeks before our separation, I stopped using illegal cannabis, and I switched to the Delta 8 and Delta 10 pens that were sold in the gas station.
Okay. Did you ever sell any of those illegal substance?
Not necessarily. So I would have a couple friends that we would kind of pool our money together to save money by buying a larger quantity, and then we would divide it up amongst ourselves. But
When was the last time you did that?
March or April
Okay.
of this year. I sure wouldn't classify me as a drug dealer. I mean, yeah, I wasn't.
If the judge order you to do a drug screen, whether it's urine drug screen or hair follicle, would you be agreeable to that?
I would love to.
Okay.
Whichever one goes back the farthest and gives the most information, I would be thrilled to take one.
Okay. Let's talk about Pearson. I'm gonna pass some photos.
This will be a collective, if admitted.
You done looking at them?
No, ma'am, I haven't even flipped through them. I got
Okay.
stuck on the first
Go ahead
picture.
and look at each photo and tell me what those are.
Photos of me and my little boy.
Okay. Were you happy when you all had a baby?
I was ecstatic. All I ever wanted was a child of my own. So all I ever wanted out of life was to have a family.
Okay. What was your I would like to admit those, Your Honor, as exhibit 212.
Next in order collective.
Mr. Gman, if you can pass that to the clerk.
Sorry.
What was your participation in day-to-day care of Pearson when you were still together?
Entertainment of the child. I'd change him. I would bathe him a couple nights a week. I'd help feed him.
What else did you help with?
Not as often. I'd put him down for his first round of sleep at night. I typically didn't do any of the waking up in the middle of the night with him. I mean, that kind of fell to Tony's shoulders with me leaving the house so early and needing to be well rested. But I mean, I did what I could.
What time did you have to leave for work back in those days?
It kind of depended what my day looked like, but I mean, I was out the door by 4 a.m. most mornings.
Okay. There was a discussion about Anakista, your trip there. Were you drunk when you were all there in that place?
Specifically Anakista?
Yes.
No, ma'am. I believe I had a beer, maybe two at lunch. I was most certainly not drunk.
Are people allowed to enter the rope course if they're drunk?
I mean, each one of those courses is regulated by employee of Anakista. If somebody was noticeable drunk, I'm sure they would stop them from entering.
That's just two photographs. Okay, trying to get it to them.
You recognize those photos?
Yes, most certainly.
So the first one, is that in where was that?
This first photo, like it's tagged at the top, was in Atakista on the morning of April 15th. They had a bunch of tree houses connected by what you see here, this net system. And I mean, Pearson was running to me,
Okay.
laughing his head off. We were having a good time all together, all three of us.
Who was taking the picture?
I was taking the photograph. He was coming towards me.
And who was that person in the back?
That's Tony.
Okay. How far is it from where you were living?
Quite a few hours. I got us a hotel room
Okay.
in Gatlinburg for probably 4 days.
Okay. The next photo, Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
Where is that at?
This would be the zoo in Nashville. I was not present for this. It
Who are,
shows
who are in this picture here?
Pearson and Tony.
Okay, is that a rope course as well?
Yeah, most certainly.
Okay.
I would consider that more
Right.
complex than the first.
How old was Pearson in Anarchista when you all went there?
It was April, so he turned 2 in August. He would have been 18 or 19 months old.
Okay, and then the rope course in Alexandria Church. Does it look like he's younger there?
No, ma'am. He'd be slightly older in this
Okay.
photo, actually.
Okay, I would
This
like
would have
to-
been after our separation.
Okay, I would like to admit those. Thank you. So, you have agreed to supervise visitations, correct?
It was the only way I was going to get to see him at all.
Okay, and so, do you recall, when did we enter that agreement?
Very early on. I mean, me and Tony separated on a Sunday. I came to you that Friday, and all I wanted out of the whole situation, I mean, I cried in your office. I didn't want to get divorced. I just wanted to see Pearson.
Okay, and then did you, before we filed for divorce, did you ask to see Pearson?
Yes, ma'am. That Friday, I was told that the next day on Saturday that I could meet him at the park and I could spend time with him at the park.
And were you able to do that?
No, she told me she'd been advised against letting me see Pearson,
Okay.
and she didn't show up.
Would June 16 sound about right when we entered the supervised visitation agreement?
Quite possibly, yeah, it was quite a few weeks I went without seeing Pearson.
Okay. I'm gonna show you a document. So it's upside down. Taking it wrong. Do you recognize that document?
Yeah, they are texts between me and Tony from pretty early on in the separation.
Okay, so you see there, the date is June 17. That was the day after we entered the supervised agreement, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, can you read that message and tell me who sent that?
It's a message I sent. It says, "Tomorrow's Father's Day. Please make sure to let my boy know Daddy loves and misses him a ton."
Okay, go ahead and read the next two messages and tell us who were those from.
The next two are from me as well. The next one being Tuesday, the 20th. "I want to see my boy. What's going on? What's it going to take to schedule a visit? Your lawyer told mine y'all are open to it."
Okay, and then the following.
Is another 6 days later. I said, "Pretending this isn't happening or ignoring this isn't going to make it go away. I'll never give up on getting to spend time with my son. It's truly best if we're just agreeable. The information getting to me is your lawyer's waiting on you to help set up an agreed supervised visitation schedule prior to our hearing, which I'm more than willing to accept for the time being. What's the holdup? Is your lawyer relaying false info to my legal team or ... question mark?"
Okay. Go on.
She responded pretty much immediately to that, after not responding for over a week and said, I emailed him last night, you should be hearing from your lawyer today.
Okay, then, next page.
I didn't answer that night. I answered the next morning about midday. My lawyers responded to yours. We've requested specific times that I believe are very agreeable. Please give your lawyer a call so we can get this ball rolling. Then I said, it's long overdue that I see my son. He's been withheld from me for far too long. I didn't get a response. My next message was, have you gotten in contact with your lawyer? I didn't get a response. The next message,
You don't have to read that. The last message was that, who was that from?
me, all of those messages were from me except for one.
Okay, so beginning June 17, you sent her a text message asking for the supervised visit. Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And when did you actually start having the visit?
Probably another couple weeks.
Would
few
July
weeks.
6 sound accurate?
Quite possibly.
Okay, so that would have been about 3 weeks from the start of you asking. Okay. Well, how did that make you feel?
Horrible. Absolutely terrible. I mean, it was rough. I just wanted to see my son.
And tell me, how has it been going with you trying to get some visits with your son?
I mean, I wouldn't call it great. To my understanding, we're supposed to talk and agree about when and for how long I see him. And that hasn't been what's transpired at all. I mean, I'm told when I can see him, and if I don't like it, too bad. I mean,
Well,
I've
how
left
often-
work countless times early. I've skipped entire days of work to see him. I mean, I don't put anything before seeing Pearson. I've come back from Cincinnati to spend 3 hours with him to turn around and go right back to Cincinnati.
What's in Cincinnati?
So a few months back, after I finished the school, we were in a lull in the region in between projects. We didn't really have anything ready to kick off yet. And I mean, I didn't have a family at home. I'm pretty miserable. I figured, why not go travel for a little bit and do some work up there. So I did. But I mean, I was driving 6 hours home on a Friday night to see Pearson Saturday morning and then leaving again Saturday afternoon.
Okay.
Spent-
Did you ask your wife for other modes of communication with Pearson?
Yes, ma'am. I've asked to at least be able to FaceTime him a couple times a week on the in-between days of the visits.
Mm-hmm.
And I was told that she wasn't comfortable with that.
Okay, so you haven't had any of those FaceTime visits that you were requesting?
She allowed me about 10 minutes on his birthday, which I was very grateful for.
Okay.
Is this the next six?
Yes, I'm sorry. I need to remember.
Number 14.
You recognize that?
I do.
Oh, you already gave it to me.
Okay. So what is that?
On
What is
page
this?
1,
Mm-hmm.
this is the photographs she provided for me on his birthday, which again, I really appreciated. I wished I could have been there on his birthday to celebrate with him, but it meant a lot that she was willing to step out and let me do that. and see what was going on.
And then can you read the message down below there?
I said, I would like to see my son Saturday from 9 to 2, 5 hours. I'd really like to see him for more time and do our own little birthday celebration. We've been doing 3 hours and it goes well. We really should be increasing the time me and him get together.
Okay, and then look at the next document. What is that?
Those are the presents that I brought him for his birthday, the Saturday after his birthday during a 3-hour visit.
Okay, and then the third document?
It's me and him playing in the bouncy house with one of the trucks I got him. I don't believe the truck was a birthday present. I think it was just a toy that I got him.
Okay.
But
I would like to enter that an exhibit. What number again?
15.
Okay.
As far as this photo goes, I'd like to acknowledge how dirty his feet are from our visitations. I mean, that was a regular occurrence on our visits, with the place not being very well kept or clean. I mean, the bottom of his foot is disgusting.
Where did you all agree to have the visits?
At Alexandria Church of Christ, because that was the only option I was given.
Okay. Recognize that photo?
You need that.
I do.
Okay. So what date is reflected on that document?
This is reflecting a post of October 15th at 5:41 p.m.
And what day was that? Do you remember that day?
I believe this photo to have been taken on a Sunday.
Okay. Did you ask for a visit that day?
I've asked for visits on Sundays, and I was told that Sunday is their day to stay home and celebrate the Sabbath, that they don't do anything on Sundays.
Okay.
But here he is at a Mexican restaurant drinking a bowl of queso.
And who is that on the picture?
It's Pearson.
And whose post is this?
Bobby Ford's.
Who is he?
She is the wife of the
She.
pastor that married us, that has not done a visitation for me and Pearson in months.
Is she one of the supervisors that she suggested in the
She's the
order?
original supervisor, and I constantly see things like this where she's hanging out with my child or she's hanging out with Tony and my child, but she doesn't supervise for me and Pearson. I mean, I got maybe 5 visits from them, and then they wouldn't do any more
Okay.
once
How many,
Tony's mom agreed to.
Average, how many times a week do you see person for these supervised visits?
As of recently, I see him about twice a week. Sometimes it's not twice a week. There's been the rare occasion where I've got more than twice.
How many hours per visit?
It kind of varies, and I don't understand why the variance is there, but recently, within the last less than a month, she's allowed me 4 hours on Saturday after being very strict about he cannot be out of the house more than 3 hours. He won't behave. It's too much for him. And then I typically get 2 hours on a weekday, maybe 3 if I'm lucky. So, I mean, as of recent, I'd say a maximum of 7 hours a week.
And how are the visits going with you and Pearson?
Amazing up until the very end. When I tell him it's time to clean up, Daddy has to go, and he looks at me like I'm the bad guy, like I don't want to play anymore. And I mean, there's no way to convey that to a 2-year-old, that this is just the way things are.
When you do those visits, do you come prepared with whatever Pearson needs?
Most certainly. I mean, every every visit, I provide him with a meal and send him home with surplus food to feed him another 2 or 3 meals when he gets home. I bring my diaper bag. I
You
make
got
sure
your
I
own
have.
diaper bag?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Okay.
I make sure there's things to do there because I mean it's just a tile floor in the room of a church. Like if I wasn't to bring toys, there wouldn't be nothing to do. And
Okay.
I mean, I do everything I can to keep him occupied. He's hardly ever out of my arm's reach. I mean, those are the few hours a week I cherish. I will spend my entire week looking forward to those little glimpses of time.
What kind of actions have you taken to prepare you or help you with taking care of Pearson?
Anything and everything I could think of, anything that's come to mind that I thought may quell my wife's worries or may make me be a better father, or even better husband. I mean, I've done everything I could possibly think of, from Red Cross childcare classes to parenting classes.
Where did you take the parenting classes?
I took a parenting class at Main Street Interventions.
Okay. What else did you take there?
I took an anger management class that was 12 weeks long, that I really put my all into because I realized I could benefit from it.
Okay.
And I also took a psychological assessment there. Those would be the 3 things I've done through Main Street. On top of that, I took my handgun safety class. I also took water safety for parents and caregivers because, I mean, I live on the lake. There's a pool on the property I live. I mean, I've tried to think about everything that could possibly go wrong and tried to do what the best option was to make it not an issue. I mean, I've also taken a Red Cross class in advanced childcare. I just want to be a dad. It's all I care about. I want to be the best dad I could possibly be to that little boy.
I would like to pass a document. Yes. Tell me what that is.
I believe this is the report of my mental health assessment.
And you just testified that you did that with Main Street.
That is correct.
When did you do that?
It's dated 9/25/23.
Okay. If you can go to the second page, I believe the assessment summary is there. Probably the bottom part. Your Honor, may I approach because I don't have a copy?
I think I have an objection on,
Oh,
I'm going to object to hearsay on the,
this is the mental report or mental health report.
Your Honor, we have a certified business record attached to it that's notarized, signed by the Main Street.
Has Mr. Holly seen that?
Yes, Your Honor.
I've seen it. She sent it to me a couple of days ago. My objection is the formal legal objection. It's going to be a business records exception, consideration with, and the certificate of service for the custodian looks to be proper. It does. But if you look at the actual rule, before the trial or hearing, the proponent must give an adverse party reasonable written notice of the intent to offer the record, and must make the record and certification available for inspection so that the party has a fair opportunity to challenge them. But in a couple of days, I haven't had an opportunity to do that. The court's aware of Main Street Interventions is really not considered to be some place that you can send folks to get anything above just filling out a questionnaire and a repeat of what the questionnaire said. There's no LCSW down there. Ms. Pugh's made that pretty plain. I have a motion on the floor for a psychological evaluation based on the evidence that we've got before us and the evidence to come. I think he needs a little more help than that. That's a separate issue. My issue with this objection is a couple of days, I haven't had enough time to get with Main Street Interventions, again, to corroborate and back up everything I'm telling this court about their ability to do a mental health assessment, what what they do when they do it, how they analyze it, and how they get our report out here. And normally I don't object to Main Street Interventions, but in this situation, I think that it runs a little bit deeper. And I would like to have the time my objection is need to have the time to be able to address the court and let you know exactly what went into this Main Street intervention, because this is not a formal psychological assessment.
Your Honor, may I respond?
You may.
I have provided Mr. Holly more than a couple of days. I provided that certificate. And he knew about it. This was done September the
25th.
25th. Soon after we got it, a few days after, I sent it to Mr. Holly. I know that he's busy, but he did have the time within the rules to either subpoena the business record person who certified it, or subpoena the person who conducted the assessment. Also in that document is the certificate of him completing the parenting class and the anger management class, which is
What I'm
also
looking
certified.
at, it's October 26th is when it was sent to me. So I've had it.
Well, now, you've had it since October
It
26th.
got sent to me in an email October 26th, to be candid with the court, but still, that's, again, I've got to give certain notice for subpoenas and things of that nature. As the court's well aware, I got 21 days notice for the detectives the other day, and that's a formal rule. It just hadn't been enough time to be able to subpoena someone to come into court to be able to testify what goes into this type of
What
document.
rule are you require, the rule regarding the rules of evidence regarding a business record exception to the hearsay rule is under exception number 6, records of regularly conducted activity, a memorandum report, record of data compilation in any form of acts, events, conditions, opinions, or diagnoses is made at or near the time or by or from information transmitted by a person with knowledge and a business duty to record or transmit if kept in the course of regularly conducted business activity, and if it was the regular practice of that business activity to make the memorandum report, record, or data compilation, all as shown by the testimony of the custodian or other qualified witness, or by certification that complies with Rule 902 subsection 11, or a statute permitting certification unless the source of the information or the method of circumstances of preparation indicate a lack of trustworthiness. Nowhere in here do I see, and maybe I'm not looking at the same rule. What rule are you looking at?
902.11. That's what I'm reading from. The last sentence of that, before the trial or hearing, the proponent must give an adverse party reasonable written notice of the intent to offer the record, must make the record and certification available for inspection, that the party has a fair and opportunity to challenge them.
Your
That's
Honor,
the
we're
last
not
sentence,
in trial.
902.11.
I'm sorry, this is a temporary hearing. It's not a final
So the
hearing.
rules of evidence don't apply for a temporary hearing the same as they do for the
It
regular hearing?
does. But Your Honor, another defense for me is that I have complied with the requirements that you have recited. And Mr. Holly mentioned that the certification is acceptable.
Well, and I would say the email that I got, the heading was, see attached document showing my client completed both anger management and parenting classes from Main Street, period. And that's all I got. It wasn't an offer to use it here today.
Rule says the party intending to offer a record into evidence under Rule 902.11 says a party intending to offer a record into evidence under this paragraph must provide written notice of that intention to all adverse parties, and must make the record and the declaration available for inspection sufficiently in advance of their offer into evidence to provide an adverse party with a fair opportunity to challenge them. it is my opinion that Ms. Hendrickson has given you a fair opportunity to challenge them. What you're saying is you wanted more opportunity to go further behind the record and contact Main Street Interventions, which you will have that opportunity at a final hearing. But for the introduction of this case, I find that she has complied with both the rules of exceptions to hearsay and as well as Rule 902.11. So I overrule your objection, and the document will be made an exhibit. So
Thank you, Your Honor. May I approach the witness?
you may.
If you can read that.
Inside the box.
Yes.
This client obtained a PAS total raw score of 6, which corresponds to a P score of 3.50. This score indicates the client has a low risk of experiencing clinical problems. Based on Mr. Gramman's responses to the questions in this assessment, it does not appear that he has any mental health issues. Mr. Gramman has no further recommendations.
Mr. Gramman, before you had the assessment, did you testify that you attended the anger management and the parenting classes, correct?
Yes, ma'am. So I attended a 12-step anger management class through Main Street Interventions, as well as a 10-step parenting class, not a 12, for the sole being that Pearson is a toddler, and the final 2 steps are designated towards raising to raising teenagers solely. So because of his age, they had me take a 10-step.
Okay. And I have here Miss Patty Flores, who she was the one who conducted both the anger management and parenting classes and your mental health assessment, correct? So she had been exposed to you for the whole period.
That is correct, yes.
I would like to enter this into evidence.
Number 17.
Okay. You heard your wife testify about animal abuse by you. What is your response to that?
I really don't even know what to say to those matters. I mean, they're so outlandish that it's crazy. It truly
Did you
a
do any
crazy
of
thing
those
to hear.
things that she had testified to?
Nowhere near the extent that was testified to, no, ma'am.
Okay, if you can read that, I'm almost done.
Am I supposed to elaborate on the animals or moving past that?
So was there any incident with the animals and you having to put your hands on any of the animals?
Yes.
Okay, explain that to the court.
So the first animal she spoke of was our original cat when we were married. The cat had an issue with destruction. It was a very, very destructive animal. It didn't matter if it was one of the countless laptop chargers I bought or countless phone chargers, even TV wires and speaker wires. It did not matter to the animal. It would destroy them. And it was becoming a financial burden. And I got upset with the cat one day and I put it outside. To never be seen again. I opened the back door, put it on the back concrete pad by the fence, and it went about its own way. I never beat the animal. I yelled at it. I told her it wasn't living with us anymore, and I put it outside, but I did not beat that animal.
Okay. What about the cat? There was a mention about a cat.
That is the cat he was talking about, right? The original cat?
Yes, sir.
That's what you were just talking about.
Yes, Your
Okay,
Honor.
I'm sorry. Can you read that? Is there anything else that you wanted to share about the?
I would like to share more about the accusation. So then we spoke of a dog. A dog that I tied to the jet ski. And I did hit the dog. I did. I was home and I was in the spare bedroom where we kept all the musical instruments. And my wife had this box with a wire that came out of it that in some way, shape, or form, it plugged into her computer and into the musical instruments, and it would alter the noise that the instrument would make. And the dog grabbed it and tried running away from me with it. And I chased the dog to get it back because, I mean, I was under the impression it was a very expensive item. And when I went to take the item from the dog bit me. At that point, I put the leash on the dog. I smacked the dog before I put the leash on the dog. And I left the dog tied up to the jet ski till she got home.
Okay.
At that point, I told her we had to figure out what we were going to do with this dog. And I was very angry at the animal. I mean, I was bleeding pretty bad and I was angry. And quite frankly, I wanted the dog killed. And I was talked out of it and I brought it to her parents and it resided with her parents and it turned into a very aggressive animal. Very aggressive, to the point where when my family visited the property, they were scared to get out of the car. And eventually it was killed by her father, shot in the head for attacking a goat.
Okay.
I guess that's really all I have on the matter. I mean, did I punish the dog? Yes, I did. Did I beat the dog and abuse the dog? I don't believe so. I wouldn't consider that abuse.
What about a cat? You never beaten a cat until it was bleeding inside a bathroom?
Absolutely not. I mean, I'm not even sure that's physically possible without killing an animal of that size. I mean, that's a pretty small animal. And to draw blood from it and beat it senselessly like was described, I mean,
Okay.
how would it be okay?
Have you had a chance to read that text messaging?
I have not. Okay, I've read it.
Can you read the very top and tell us who sent that to who?
So this is going to be a message from me, and it says, okay, she should be calling. I hope you realize this is the last thing I want is a broken family. I miss my son so very much, and I miss you a lot too. You left me with no choice by refusing to let me see Pearson. Left me with no choice is in reference to filing the divorce.
Okay. And then in turn, was a response sent to you?
Yes, so I'm not sure how much time elapsed in between these, but I got a response. You can leave the stuff at Lindsay's or in the trailer. Mom will come by and pick it up. You can leave my kayak. Mom will get it. I don't know if you want the cat. If you don't want her or can't take her wherever you're going, I'll take her.
So she offered for you to have a cat.
Yes, I still currently have the cat. I mean, that's my only thing to hang out with in my house. I mean, I don't have my son there. I don't have a wife in the home with me. Me and the cat had always been a lot closer than the cat and Tony or anybody. I mean, that was my cat. I found it. I brought it home one day, and I've taken care of it.
Okay. So even with her testimony alleging that you had beaten a cat, she had offered you to keep a cat, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And then the last topic I want to talk to you about was the physical abuse that was testified to upon you. Yes. I need to remember that. Number 18. Okay, thank you. So tell us the instances when your wife had put her hands on you.
There was a lot. I guess it started just a few months after we got married. I remember one very distinctly, the December after our marriage, so it'd be December of 2020. I couldn't tell you what the argument's about. I mean, that much has slipped from my mind, but I remember being upstairs in our bedroom and we were arguing, and she ended up flopping back on the bed to lay there and continued arguing with me, even though she said she didn't want to argue anymore. And I was standing there, and she took both of her feet and planted them as hard as she could in my stomach. And I started screaming at her, "How could you do this?" And she hit me across the face, and I lost my cool a little bit. I smashed one mirror on the makeup stand. I pulled it in a way that the way it was mounted to the dresser, it shattered. And then I took another mirror and I swung it into the corner, the corner out of our master bathroom. It was a outside corner, so it would have had an edge like that. And I swung the mirror into the corner and it shattered. And in the process, I cut my hand really bad. And that was kind of the end of that argument because I had to go to the hospital and go get stitches.
Which house was this?
This was our very first house, the townhouse in Cookville.
Did you tell anybody about this incident?
No, I don't believe I did. I was pretty ashamed of the way I responded. I was just in such disbelief that she'd hit me.
Okay. Were there any other instances?
Not where my reaction was quite so volatile.
Has she ever punched you?
Absolutely.
She testified? Where were you then?
Absolutely. So the most recent time she punched me in my face, we were living in the mother-in-law suite at her parents' house, and she hung out a lot upstairs. And once again, I couldn't tell you what the argument was about, but I was holding Pearson and we were arguing back and forth. And out of the living room, there's a French door that goes onto one part of the wraparound porch. And we were arguing, and she went out the door, and I came to follow her out the door holding Pearson, and she turned around and punched me in my face while I was holding the baby.
Were you threatening her at that point while you were following her?
I wasn't threatening her in the means of I wasn't telling her I was going to hurt her or harm her, anything along those natures. I mean, I was yelling, I was arguing. It was a verbal disagreement. And then she did that, and I threatened to call the police on her, which is something I would have never done, but I wanted her to understand the gravity of the situation. And then when her parents came home, I addressed again with her father that he needed to have a talk with her because she's going to have to stop putting her hands on me.
You said again, were there any other conversations with you and her father regarding that same issue?
Three or four. Her mother had been present and overheard me tell him a few times, been in the room, but it never did anything. It never stopped her. And I mean, it just sucked. It just wasn't good. I mean,
Did you ever hit her back?
no. Never in my life have I laid a hand on that girl in a negative manner, ever.
What about Pearson?
I couldn't do something like that. I might not be a great man, but I'm not a monster. And I could not hit my child or my wife. I couldn't do it. Never could I do something like that.
Is there anything else that you want to convey to the judge?
To the judge?
Yes. Is there anything else that you want to say?
there's so much to say. It's just, how do you say it? I mean, I've made some terrible choices. I have not made the best choices in life. Well, I sit up here and I say all I ever want's a family, but does everything I've done really reflect that? I don't think so. And it's shameful. It is. All I ever wanted was to be a dad, and I love Tony with my whole heart. I don't know how things got as bad as they did. I'm ashamed of my words towards that girl. I am. I can't believe some of the things that came out of my mouth in times of anger. And that's why I realized I needed to go to anger management, because that was so far off kilter and so unacceptable that, I mean, sorry doesn't fix that. I love you doesn't fix that. I mean, I said some pretty terrible things to her, and I was not very nice to her. And I'm ashamed of that. I truly, truly, truly am sorry. And it's just, I want to be a dad. I care about my child so much. All I ever wanted out of life was to be the father I didn't get to have. I didn't meet my dad till I was 15 years old. And at that point, I thought I was grown already. I didn't need a dad. And I don't want the same for Pearson. I want to be there every step of the way. I don't want him to go to a sporting event in school and feel like he's alone because his daddy's not cheering him on in the crowd. I don't, sporting event, academic event, anything. I just want to be there for my son. I want to be there when he gets his first girlfriend. I want to be there when he goes to his first dance. I missed his first haircut and I cried my eyes out over it. I miss my son, and I miss my family as well. Unfortunately, I know there's no fixing anything with me and Tony, as much as, I mean, I'd give anything too. But there is a chance for me to still be a father to my child, and I will do anything to be that father. I love my son unconditionally. I would never, ever put him in harm's way. I never have, and I never will. I love that little boy. Every day, I better myself. Every day. I mean, we've been separate 6 months, and all I've done is devote as much time as possible towards bettering myself, no matter what it meant for my career, no matter how much time I had to miss from that, no matter if it was unreasonable to come back and see Pearson for a measly 3-hour visit. I got my butt in the car and I came back from Cincinnati to spend 3 hours with him and go back. It's like 13 hours round trip, because he's that important to me. I love my child. There's nothing I wouldn't do for him. And
Anything else, Ms. Hendrickson?
No, Your Honor, I'll pass the witness.
Holly, you may cross-examine.
I take back what I said about 4 o'clock. I think we'd get done by then.
If we don't finish today, we'll come back tomorrow morning.
Sir. So if I'm hearing you right, you love Miss Gramman, you loved your wife, let's call her that. You loved your wife, wanted to reconcile, didn't want any part of this. Is that accurate?
I did want to reconcile. She did not want any part of it.
But now you filed for divorce, right?
That is correct.
You went to go see a lawyer, you signed the complaint, and you served her with divorce papers.
I did.
Okay.
Because she said I wasn't going to see Pearson again. And I didn't go to a divorce lawyer to file a divorce. I went to a divorce lawyer to find
All
out
of these
how.
tapes that I played, she testified were done within 60 days of the separation, a couple of months. Do you dispute that?
No. I'd say it was all
She said
very
that you
close to
had been
divorce.
using marijuana and drinking on a daily basis towards the end of your relationship at the separation. Do you dispute that?
No.
So all of these things that we played, the tapes that you heard that you just said you were so sorry for, it's horrific, horrible, whatever word you used, that was really right up to the point of separation, correct?
That is correct.
Can you understand why the progression of your conduct with your history? I'm not going to get into all of it unless you make me, but you understand you've heard some testimony today about your history and you testified to it. You understand that?
My history as in, or during our marriage?
Tell me what your, strike that. I'm not going to get into it. You understand with your history, Mrs. Gman kind of knew about your history. She knew you spent time in jail. She knew you had issues, correct?
I don't believe I had issues. I believe I made a mistake that I learned from.
Well, if that was in your history and you learned from it years ago, why am I still hearing these tapes about you talking to your wife like a dog about missing a tackle box, about not getting you a tackle box at Walmart? And we heard all of the things that were in that tape. When I tell you to jump, you say how high. You're going to wish you wouldn't got that tackle box rather than deal with me right now. I believe were some of the quotes that were there.
I'm sorry.
I don't think there's a question there.
I'm getting to a question, Your Honor.
Please form your questions in the form of a question, even though it is on cross-examination. He's able to make a leading question, but it does need to be a question.
So you're telling us that you're all better now from the mistake that you made years ago, but yet we're still hearing those types of comments that I just made. How do you explain that?
What I'm saying is those two things do not correlate. I wasn't locked up because I was being mean to my spouse. That's not what I served time for. I admit I was not nice to my spouse, and I am remorseful for that. But I don't believe those two things correlate.
Well, all right then. What mistake did you make years ago that you felt like you learned from, and what did you learn from it?
I learned that things aren't always going to be my way.
What mistake?
That I can't just do whatever I want.
First off, my first part of my question, what did you do that was a mistake back then that you learned from?
I shouldn't have thrown a party when I was told not to. I should have listened to authority. And for the most part, after that event, I have listened to authority. I'm not saying I'm a perfect man. I'm not saying I haven't made any mistakes since then. The way I treated my wife doesn't necessarily correlate with that event. I'm not sitting here saying that I treated her like an angel, which at the beginning I did my best too. But I got away from that, and I'm remorseful for it. I wish I could have done better. And I've spent the last 6 months revolving around how sorry I am and what she could have felt from my words. And it does not make me feel good. And I will never, ever speak to another human being like that again. And I wish I hadn't done it to her.
You said you threw a party, and that was at your aunt and uncle's house?
Yes, sir.
And they pressed charges and put you in jail?
They did.
And you were living with them at the time?
I was not.
And you never completed Timothy Hill?
No, I did not.
And they had things for you to do, correct? I mean, you had classes or things that you were supposed to be doing for them?
I'm really not sure what the entire program entailed. I know that it was mainly a work-derived program where you would go there and you would work with the horses and you would learn maintenance skills and you would learn this and learn that. That is what I learned from.
What didn't you complete then? You said you didn't complete the program.
I was
What did you
supposed to
not
be
complete?
there for a period of 12 to 24 months. And because I was a child, thinking like a child, I didn't do it. I thought jail would be so much easier. It would be the simpler way. Would I have gone about it the same way now? Absolutely not. But I wasn't ready to accept things when I said, Judge, just give me the time.
When you were talking with Ms. Hendrickson, you testified, I think you testified that a lot of the problems that you had were stress related. There was a lot on your shoulders, I think is the way that you phrased that. Was that correct?
Yeah, I was dealing with a lot of stress at home between me and her, the tension. I was dealing with a lot trying to wrap up that school.
When you're dealing with stress and dealing with wrapping up school and the stress with school, then that's what you're blaming your conduct on with this lady at the dollar store. Is this what you're blaming your conduct on when you're talking to your wife about not getting a tackle box? Again, you heard her testify, and I didn't hear you address this, but is this how you're relieving your stress or dealing with your stress when you're trying to brake check people on the interstate and you got a gun out and you're trying to shoot somebody on the interstate or want to shoot somebody?
We didn't address that incident, but it never happened.
Is that how you deal with stress?
No, that event that is mythical did not happen.
The dollar store then, let's just take it as it is. We played the tape for the dollar store, we played the tape for the Walmart, we played these tapes about things. That's how you deal with stress nowadays. Is that your testimony?
My testimony is 6 months ago. I didn't have a very good handle on the stress. And as far as the Dollar General incident goes, I was provoked and then followed. Okay.
And that gives you justification for everything you said on that tape?
Did I commit the actions that I said on the tape? Or was it verbal? I answered earlier that I had a tendency to emphasize things, and I'm not proud of it. But the events never occurred.
Do you feel like you need help handling your stress?
I think I'm going to learn how to work through it, and I'm continually learning new ways to manage it.
How are you doing that? Just pulling things off the internet or out of the air for you?
Reflecting on the anger management class I took and working through the steps that were taught in that class.
Well, when you were working with Ms. Pugh or you're filling out the questionnaire, did you tell them about the episode at the dollar store? When I drag them in here later in another hearing, are they going to know that was part of the history that you gave?
That is one of the events I used on my 3 main events in my anger management class.
So you told them about all that. What did you tell them about it?
I put it in my workbook.
What did you tell them about it? What did you put in your workbook?
That I got
If I subpoena your
into
workbook, what's it going to
Your
say?
Honor, we need to let the witness answer. Mr. Holly's
Let him answer the question
interrupting.
before you start interrupting him.
Yes, sir. So if I subpoena the workbook, what's it going to say that you wrote down in there?
the 3 main events that led me to that class was an incident with road rage and the way I was treating my spouse. Those were the 3 defining events I used.
Is that all that you wrote?
Do you have an objection?
I don't want to be petty, Your Honor, but I would like for Your Honor to address Mother. Her leg is up on the chair. I just feel like it's just not proper to be like that in the courtroom. I just.
Overruled. She said however comfortably she needs to.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, if that was disrespectful.
I didn't notice it, so it can't be disrespectful to me, but I don't consider that to necessarily be disrespectful. So, Mr. Hawley, you may proceed.
So again, if I subpoena your workbook, it's just going to say you had a road rage incident. You didn't talk about the particulars about anything.
I'm sure we addressed it in my classes. And
Talk
if you
about
would,
what you wrote on your workbook, sir. It's not going to say, it's not going to hand write out everything that you had on that tape, everything that we talked about or she testified to.
not everything that happened in that tape truly happened, which
you
a
tell-
lot of that was, I would have done this.
Did you tell
Did
them about
not do
drinking
this.
and driving?
I don't drink and drive. I do not drink while driving.
Did I miss something on those tapes? At the dollar store, you came home, you were talking about you would drink. You'd had, what, $80 shots all day? And you were drinking?
And I did not drive home directly after that.
Were you intoxicated when that tape was being made?
I had been home drinking for a period of time after that.
You had no license then either, did you?
No, I did not.
Are you on a payment plan with the state of Tennessee now?
No, I am not.
How much did you pay to get your license back?
I don't know the exact figure, but it was a substantial amount of money to
Give me
New
a
York.
ballpark figure.
Between the lawyer and the fees, I got most of the fees dropped. The lawyers, it was a few $1,000s, handful of thousands.
I'm sorry?
Thousands of dollars.
Thousands of dollars.
thousands of dollars.
But sitting here today, you can't tell if it's 3,000 something, 4,000 something? You have no recollection of the money you spent.
The lawyers were a little over 2,000, and I'm not sure what the tickets were. They started out a lot higher than what I had to actually pay.
You said you were paying her approximately $100 a week. Have you missed any weeks?
I have, and I've done what I can to make up on other weeks.
You missed quite a few weeks. Is that fair enough?
At the very beginning of the separation, before I understood what was really going to happen out of this, probably.
And you're making upper 20s an hour, that's 50,000 a year, maybe 60? With what your work schedule is?
I'm not sure, but I'm sure my lawyer has the documents.
You've already admitted it in evidence, I just didn't know if you would tell us. I think you testified, correct me if I'm wrong, that you've not been pulled over without a license. You never went through that.
You were wrong. I
Okay.
did not testify to that.
So you had been pulled over without a license?
Many times.
Okay. And you have a license now?
I do.
Do you have insurance?
I pay for the insurance on the vehicle.
And you drive?
Yes,
You have a vehicle now?
I do.
What kind of
I've
vehicle
had
do
a
you have?
vehicle the entire time.
What kind of vehicle do you have
A
right now?
Chevrolet Avalanche.
Chevrolet Avalanche. And is that insured right now?
It is on an insurance policy
sorry?
currently. Yes, it is currently insured.
And you're sure about that?
I just made the payment a few days ago, so I'm pretty sure.
Do you have a history of threatening?
No,
Never? You're sure?
I'm sure.
Did you ever get in a fight with your own father? Physical fight?
I got into a physical altercation with my own father. That's correct.
You took a drug test today. Are you going to pass it?
I will pass it, and I would love to take one.
6 months.
As far back as you can go.
And you don't use cannabis then these days?
No, I do not.
You're not taking Delta 8, Delta 9?
Nothing.
And you should be able to pass a drug test without any problem?
Flying colors.
Well, you went to Main Street Interventions and you've taken these things that you say you've taken. But why didn't you go take a drug test?
Because I was told that was something the judge would order.
Well, the judge may order a psychological evaluation. I've got a motion for it. You went and did your own little psych assessment. Judge might order anger management, and you went and took that.
Objection argumentative.
What's the difference?
I'm sorry.
Argumentative.
You know, I'm cross-examining. I'm asking what the difference is with the things that he did versus the drug test that he could have taken.
Overruled.
You can answer the question.
The question is, why did I not take a drug test?
You took these other things. Why didn't you go take a drug test? If you were thinking ahead like you were thinking.
Because I was told nothing was going to matter as much as that hair follicle test. And to my knowledge, Main Street won't do a hair follicle test. But I would be delighted to give a sample.
Is it fair to say those pictures of the ropes courses aren't a fair and accurate depiction of the ropes courses at Anakeesta?
I would say that is not a fair representation. Your comment is not a fair comment. That photograph is from Anakeesta.
But the one that she's complaining of that you were going on, and I've been there, I've been on those ropes courses. It's not hard to pull them off the internet, be aware of this. She's testifying that you were on a ropes course that was way up in the air. You know, they've got some that go 20, 30, some 50 feet up. Is that accurate? Did you see that when you were there?
I did not see any that were that high. I've seen some that were there that were more complicated than the one the photo was on.
You didn't see one that was 20 or 30 feet in the air?
I cannot say that I did see one like that, no.
She's saying that's the one you were on, and you're denying that, right?
I am denying that. That is correct.
Did you have him on your shoulders at 1.5 years old going through a ropes course at all?
Absolutely not. I'm pretty sure I would have been thrown out of the park.
Why do you find it necessary to carry a gun to your visitation to a church?
Why do I find it necessary?
Yes, sir. Why do you find it necessary to carry a gun to a church visitation?
Because on my first visitation, my father-in-law was lurking in the parking lot after he'd menaced me with a firearm on the day I was trespassed from the property. So I did not feel safe, as well as our original supervisor, Jeff Ford, is the first man I have known in Tennessee when I moved here to carry a gun on them at all times. So I carry a firearm with me for my own protection. And once I was requested not to carry it anymore, I didn't carry the firearm to a visitation anymore.
Well, you carried it open. I mean, you let them know you had a gun, didn't you?
I let them know I had a gun?
Yeah, you let them know you had a gun when you were there, didn't you?
And how do you figure that?
I get to ask the questions.
That I let them know I had a gun?
Yeah, you pretty well made it plain and obvious that you had a gun at that visitation. Let them know that, did you not?
No, I don't believe I did. I mean, yes. Did my shirt ride up in a photograph that was taken? Yes. Was I menacing with the firearm? Absolutely not. Did I remove it from my holster? Absolutely not.
May I approach?
Right.
Show you a picture and ask you if you recognize that picture.
I have seen this picture.
You have. That's at the Alexandria Church of Christ, right?
That's correct.
All right. And that is inside the church.
That is correct.
And that is Pearson right in front of you looking up to Dad.
That's correct.
And the supervisors were there.
Her mother is there, correct.
And that's a gun in your back that is open.
That is correct.
Next exhibit, Judge, if I may. I mean, were you scared the supervisor's going to shoot you or something?
When I'm locked inside of a building with somebody that I do not trust outside on the first visit, I was a little concerned.
And you brought that gun to make sure they understood that you had one, and that alleviates your concerns, wouldn't it?
No, that is not the purpose of carrying the gun. It is not something to be used to threaten or menace anybody. It is something that I carry with me, whether I go to the gas station, I go to Dollar General, or I go food shopping. I always have a firearm on me when it is legally permitted.
Part of the visitation was kind of up to the discretion of the Fords because it dealt with their work schedule. Is that fair enough?
Can you restate that?
Well, all right. So the visitation in the order says that Jeff or Bobby Ford is going to be supervising the visits. Is that fair enough?
Yes.
All right. And do you think you would have gotten maybe some more visitations if you weren't carrying a gun like in that picture around the Fords of the church?
I really don't believe that played a part into it.
You don't believe that played a part into it?
No, sir, I
Why
do
would
not.
it not?
Because I never menaced anybody or threatened anybody with a firearm. Not to mention, he carries a firearm as well, to my knowledge. I have seen him carry a firearm in the past. He's one of the people that explained the firearm laws to me.
Approach. I'd like to show you a couple of photographs. Ask you if you recognize these photographs as pictures that were taken at the retreat.
I was not present for these photographs, but I can confirm that this is the retreat.
Okay. And is that a fair and accurate depiction of like the school and the kids, for whatever purpose they're supposed to be there for, having a picnic, working in the classroom, doing those types of things?
Picnic, looks like a dinner, and a child playing with a Rubik's Cube.
All right. Next filed exhibit, collective. So I guess according to your testimony, it's not uncommon to have this many, I think you said 13 to 15-year-olds that are there at the retreat, going to school and living there, correct?
Is it not uncommon? No, I would imagine that is the kind of typical thing they do.
And you testified you didn't know why they were there. You don't know if it's a, like you, gonna get all better now type camp, or whether it's something else.
I testified that they are not juvenile delinquents, as stated by my wife. I testified that they are privately placed individuals, that they are not there, to my knowledge, for anything illegal or redirection or anything of that nature. They are there for private school.
To your knowledge.
That is what I've been informed by multiple people that run that program, because it was a concern I had when I moved there. So I sat down and had a meeting to validate my concerns and see what was going on, where I was told that the program is nothing like what it once was. There is no longer a child there from DCS. There is nobody there from the court systems. These are group home children living in a private school setting, a boarding school, if you will.
So onto the cat, you testified, I think the cat that was in the bathroom or whatever that had the cords, some sort of destructive cat, and you took care of the cat. Set it outside and it ran off.
That is correct. I did not injure that cat in the bathroom.
Was there any blood at all that came about from that altercation, or any altercation with that cat?
Not with the cat, no.
What would blood have been then used, or why would there be any blood with any altercation with any animal then with you?
There was never blood with any altercation with an animal. There was blood from when I cut my thumb, which I testified to earlier, breaking a mirror. And actually, the picture you're looking at, I think it shows the exact corner that I described from the mirror.
Well, may I approach?
Right.
Show you this picture that I am looking at. Is that a fair and accurate depiction of place that you live with your wife?
Well before my son was born, yes.
That's blood on the wall?
That is blood on the wall from my blood. I have the scar on my thumb to go along with it.
And that's after you trashed the room, and the room is showing that it's pretty well trashed.
Your Honor,
Is that accurate? I'm sorry.
I objected to this previously because it predates the birth of the child. I think it's the same photo.
It is. My wife wasn't even pregnant in this photograph.
When you have an objection, you just be quiet. Number one, anytime two people come into court on a custody issue and they talk about each other's, what we've got in this case specifically are two parents who have spent most of their time trashing the other parent, talking about what a bad person or a bad individual they are and how they've all got bad tendencies. Both sides have done that. And she's described his anger and his cursing. We've heard the audio tapes. He's admitted having done terrible things, but then he accuses this young lady of attacking him physically. So both of them have basically spent a large part of their time not talking so much about the strengths of parenting that would make them good parents, but rather how terrible the other parent is. It's an unfortunate thing, but when they come into court, their entire lives are an open book. So I'm overruling your objection as to the relevance of the question because it goes to his personality and his anger issues that have been already identified and testified to. He says he's gotten some help for that, and it goes to the court's decision as to who I believe and who I don't believe, credibility, in other words. Overrule the objection.
I'd make that the next file exhibit, and I'll move on, Judge.
This is the room that we trashed.
May I have a moment?
You may.
That's all I have, Judge.
Redirect.
Mr. Graham, and that altercation that was mentioned with your father, when did that happen?
I would say probably about 2 years ago.
Okay. Did you go to jail for that?
No, I did not.
Were there any charges pressed against you?
No, there were not.
How far, again, I know you testified to this, your apartment, how far is it from the goings of the school per se?
At least my home is at least a quarter mile from the home the boys reside in.
Okay. And your apartment lease listed your child's name, correct?
Yes, it says minor child. I'm not sure if it says his name per se on it, but it's worded that it includes him. If we were to take a look at it, you would see that it's speaking about me and him can reside there.
Okay, so the management permitted you, if you so choose, to have your minor child in that complex?
He was the sole purpose of me moving there in the first place.
Okay, and why is that?
Because I thought it would bring my wife some peace of mind.
Okay.
Because she was making accusations towards me, and I figured by going there, it would be somewhere she trusted. And by signing a lease that limited me in having friends over and being able to drink in the house and being able to smoke and anything like that, that it would help.
Okay. Are there any teachers, supervisors around the supervising the children who are there in the school? Are there adults?
Constantly. They're not ever alone. I mean, there's an adult that lives in their house with them. That's like their, I don't know, I guess it'd be like an RA. Like they just make sure everything's going smoothly. All the boys are eating and all that. They have private teachers in the school. They go on private outings. They have a big van they'll take and go do school trips. And I guess, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but like I think they went bowling a couple days ago. Like they'll go do activities and stuff.
Okay, that's all, Your Honor.
Recross.
But you say there's an adult with them at all times?
As far as I know, an adult lives with them. I know that to be a true statement. And I mean, they're either at home on a trip somewhere, which they would need an adult to take them.
You said a
Or in
minute ago,
school.
adults were watching them all the time at the retreat, all of that kind of stuff. Why would an adult have to watch a 13, 15-year-old like that, like more or less what you're talking about, like an eagle, all the time? They're watching them all the time. Why would they need to do that if they weren't troubled kids?
Because they're children.
Nothing further.
Did the parents pay tuition fee for these children?
Judge, I'm going to object. There's no way that he can testify about what the parents would do. This is all hearsay.
I think that would be outside the basis of his knowledge.
Is it a school?
It is. It's a private school
It's a private school.
called the Timothy Hill Academy.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
This cat you got living with you, did you have to get special permission for that cat to stay there with you?
I got verbal permission. They know the cat's in
The
there.
lease agreement says no pets unless there's a written consent.
I have consent.
Written consent.
I don't have a written document. That's not to say they didn't write one, but before I moved there, I made sure I was able to have the cat.
Do you think you have an anger problem?
Yeah, I think I've had angry tendencies in the past, and I think I've learned a lot of different skills through going through my class to manage them. And as long as I keep implementing all the skills I've learned, as well as continuing to learn new skills, I think it's something I'm going to be able to put behind me.
How often are you seeing your son right now under the supervised visitation?
It fluctuates, and to that I'm not really sure the reason for it. I've asked repetitively for consistent dates and times. I think the most I've ever gotten to see him was 3 times in 1 week, and that was before we went to these longer hours of 4 on Saturday and 3 on weekdays. I average 2 days a week, probably at the best I've had 7 hours.
So give me an example of a typical week of supervised visitation. You can do it all at the Alexandria Church of Christ?
Yes, sir, I do. So, as of most recently, I see him on Saturdays from about 10 to 2, and then whatever weekday she'll allow me, I get somewhere between 1.5 to 3 hours on a weekday, once a week.
And your lawyer has filed a petition asking that you be made the primary residential parent for the child and that she have visitation instead. That's what you're seriously asking me to do?
I'm asking to spend an adequate amount of time with my son. I want to be a half 50-50 parent, whatever that looks like. I want to give my son all I can afford to give him emotionally, mentally, time-wise. I want to be a present parent.
All right, thank you. You can step down.
I do have a follow-up question if I can.
All right. Mr. Holly has a question.
Are you aware that the retreat, the Timothy Hill Retreat, has a website?
Yeah, I'm sure they do.
Have you, I mean, I know you live there, have you looked at their mission statement with the school that goes on?
In specific to the school, no, I can't say I've seen that. I know they have a mission statement for their Timothy Hill program that's in Arkansas and New York, but that's different from what's in Tennessee.
if I told you their website says that the Stay at the Retreat supports the Timothy Hill Ranch and its mission to transform the lives of young men who come from broken homes and a troubled past. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, that's the Timothy Hill Ranch, which is in New York and Arkansas, not in Tennessee. This is a retreat, not a ranch. It's a completely different program.
Is it at Center Hill Lake?
They raise money for that program. That program does not consist on the property.
Well, you're familiar, that's part of their mission statement.
I'm familiar that it's owned by the same company and they use the money profited from that place to run their school, which is a retreat and an academy. And they also use that money in their Arkansas and New York campus to fund those programs.
That's all I have.
Just a follow-up, Your Honor. Are you aware the Center Hill Lake, is that where you're at?
Yes, ma'am.
It says here, a place for families, churches, and children to spend time being adventurous, growing together, or relaxing in nature. Does that sound about right?
That would be the mission statement for the property I reside on.
Thank you, sir. You can step down and have a seat by your lawyer. Ms. Hendrickson, you have 10 minutes. You call your next witness.
That's the close of my proof, Your Honor.
Mr. Hawley, you have 10 minutes. Call your next witness.
I'll call Ms. Graham briefly for a little rebuttal, and I may ask one of the forwards to come in. The court wants to hear from them, and that's going to do it.
Ms. Graham, come back up. We're going to go ahead and, since we're on a different day, have you placed under oath again.
All right, and Ms. Graham, you've had an opportunity to hear Mr. Graham testify a little bit,
Yes,
and you disagree with some of his testimony,
I do.
and you disagree with you being violent with Mr. Graham.
Yes.
What did he say that was untrue?
He's saying that in that second story, it was completely made up. I have no recollection of any of that.
And refresh my memory, what was the second, just briefly, what was the second story about?
Saying that I followed him and to where the sliding glass door was upstairs and hit him in the face. I think that's what it was. It was so confusing to me. Because it was just completely made up.
And one of the times he said that he hasn't been physical with you, he had been, correct?
Yes, he has.
Tell the court about that.
I was 8 months pregnant and I had came in from work and we went upstairs to our bedroom and I was exhausted because I was working 12-hour shifts at a pill factory 4 to 7 days a week, and he was having me pull a lot of overtime. And I said, I don't want to pull any overtime this week. I'm too tired. My body needs to rest. Even my supervisors at work are telling me to stay home. And he looked at me and he said, single moms don't get that choice. They have to work overtime, and which confused me. And I said, I'm not a single mom, and my body does need to rest because I'm on my feet 12 hours a day. I'm moving boxes. I'm having to do physical labor. And I just kept asking, can I please not work overtime? And he proceeded to saying these horrible things that I'm worthless and that I'm not a good worker, that I haven't been working hard enough, and that I need to continue working overtime. And he followed me into the bathroom and cornered me and got this close to my face and was just letting me have it. And I pushed him away and I said, you need to get away from me. And I went and sat on the bed, and he came out of the bathroom and he stopped in front of me to tell me off a little more, and I kicked him in the stomach to get him away from me because I was so incredibly stressed. And in turn, he looked at me and I got up because I just wanted to walk out of the room just to get away from him. And he took his hand and he smacked me in the back of the neck so hard that I fell to the floor on my stomach. And I remember he was screaming at me, "You stupid bitch, I could have hit you so much harder than that." And then my ears started ringing, and there was a very small conversation that I had with myself. And I said, this just happened. And my father advised for me long ago, if a man ever hits you, he'll hit you again.
Were you pregnant then?
I was 8 months pregnant,
All right.
very pregnant.
You heard him say that, the episode out on the interstate or on the road where, somebody tried to pass him and put you in the guardrail, that whole testimony was false, correct? Is there anything about that you would change, or is that an accurate
Oh, what
statement?
he had said?
Objection, Your Honor, leading.
Sustained, don't leave your witness.
What changes would you make to that story, if anything, right now?
Well, the way that I remember it was
I'm not talking about getting back into the whole story. I just want to know if you already testified to it.
Yeah.
What changes would you make, if anything, to your story right now?
well, that he definitely pointed a gun at that man and was pursuing him.
And you feel like he's been untruthful when he says it never happened?
He's being very untruthful.
When was that?
Let's see, that was some point at the beginning of this year.
Where were you going?
We were coming home from the zoo.
What's your biggest concern with unsupervised visitation with Mr. Graham?
I'm very afraid with our son going through the terrible twos, through the tantrums, that Brian will not be able to control and harness his anger towards Pearson. I know that when Pearson would act up, there were times he told me, "You need to put him in his room and shut the door." And he was a baby. You don't neglect a baby. And there were times where he told me, you need to beat the shit out of him when he's disobeying you. I don't think Pearson would be safe at all around him with his outburst of anger, and also with him doing drugs. If he passes out, Pearson is subjected to whatever is around him, sticking his finger in a light socket. He knows how to unlock doors. He's very smart. He could walk out the door and go right to the lake. He loves water. There's just so many things.
So what do you feel like Mr. Graham needs to do to be in a position to be a father to Pearson, to be able to have an unsupervised visitation?
I don't know. Brian is very set in his ways. He'd have to go through extensive therapy for a long time for me to feel slightly comfortable with me leaving the most precious thing on this earth. It's him. And it's more than physical abuse that I am worried about. I am very worried about Pearson's psychological abuse. Look how he treated me. My gosh, there are times where I wish he would have just hit me instead of talked to me the way that he did. He mentally broke me. He was mentally torturing me. It was horrible. I don't want Pearson to live like that and be subjected to all of the mental things that he does put people through.
Do you have stress in your life?
Yes,
How do you deal with your stress?
I write songs, I write poems. I love music. I think music is a very, very good window for me, and I am good at it. Rock climbing was a wonderful thing that I did before I met Brian. But after having a child, I don't have time for that. So I will take Pearson with me to the park, and we go outside. Being outside is very helpful. I pray a lot. I read the word of the Lord. I read a lot of Psalms, and I see David in the sufferings that he has endured, and how he always turns it back around to praise is quite amazing, and it's very encouraging to me. That's how I deal with my stress.
Heard him testify that he hasn't attempted. Was he being truthful there?
That he hasn't? No, he's attempted twice.
When was the last time that he did this?
The last time was when his father and stepmom came to visit us. Pearson was probably about 3 or 4 months old at the time. We were living at that second apartment. I believe it was in November.
How did he threaten it?
Well, we woke up one morning. It was probably the second or third day that they were visiting. His father was visiting. They rented a motel room. And we woke up, and Brian just sat up in bed, and he said, "I want to knock that window out." And I said, "What?" And he got a baseball bat, and he said, I just want to break all these windows. And I said, what is wrong with you? I thought I was dreaming, honestly. And our baby's right beside us. I said, Brian, like, stop. And he said, "I want to kill myself." And he went and got a gun, and he went in the other room, and I texted his father right away. I was like, "Y'all need to get here. He's being manic. Something's wrong with him. He's threatening himself. I don't know what's going on with him." But I do know the night before, maybe it was guilt, he called me while him and his father were at the strip club, saying, "Oh, my father, we're at this strip club. He took me here." And I said, "You drove. Why are you at a strip club?" They stayed for like 3 hours, but maybe it was guilt that was eating him up.
For speculation, Your Honor, objection.
All right, we're at 4 o'clock. We're going to stop here for the night, and we will come back tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock to resume this case.
Thank you, Judge.
I am going to contact Mickey Furlong Smith to appoint her as a guardian ad litem if she's willing to take the case. Just giving you a heads up. You can count on both parties are going to be ordered to take a psychological evaluation with a parenting assessment. I will determine that probably Dr. Janie Berryman will be the person I determine to do that. And I will consider what visitation occurs pending those things, plus there's going to be some drug testing involved. And I'm going to have everybody tested. I may even have the lawyers tested for that matter. So just for good measure. So I will say this to these folks. You're both, go ahead and step down. We're going to come back tomorrow morning. How tall are you?
4'11" and a half.
4'11" and a half. How much do you weigh?
87 pounds on a good day.
87 pounds and 4'11". All right. The reason I ask that for everyone's information is I've been told 2 different stories. One of them is that he's got a temper and is violent. The other is his version is that she's the one who's initiated the physical confrontation. And the difference in size between the parties goes to the credibility of that issue as to who is telling the truth and who's not, whether it's likely that a 4'11", 87-pound individual would begin attacking someone or not. Concerned about the fact that Mrs. Gman, perhaps, I think if I recall correctly, she testified that she really doesn't want him to see the child at all, period. I understand why she might feel that way, but I want to make sure she understands this. Children are not possessions that we own and we have a possessory ownership interest in. You chose him to marry him at the time that you married him. You knew kind of his background and you knew what was involved in it. And you chose to have a child with him. And as a result of that, with all of his faults that you told me about, he is the father of this child. And children don't have the right to choose perfect parents. They don't have the right to choose, at least while they're minors, they don't get to choose that their parents they don't want to be with that parent because the parent's not perfect. I would like to think that Mr. Gman has learned some things from his past, and I'd like to think the issue comes down to, well, he's made changes in his life. But I observe very carefully the testimony of both of these parties. And truthfully, I think there are issues with both of the parties about their credibility and some of the stories that I've been told. Mr. Gman strikes me as an individual who thinks that he can talk his way out of pretty much any kind of problem that he's got, at least from watching him testify. And his manner of testimony and the way he's gone about it causes this court to have some very serious concerns regarding his credibility. I'm not trying to insult you. I'm just trying to tell you, I've done this a long time. I've done it longer than either of these two lawyers. I practiced law longer than either of them two. I practiced law longer than you've been alive before I ever took the bench. I represented a lot of folks like you. You two have not been able to resolve this case by yourself. So you're putting it in my hands, somebody who's never met your son, who's never met you before you came into this courtroom, and you're asking me to make decisions. And I'm going to do what I think is right. It may not be what either one of you wants me to do, but I want you to both to understand, you're going to have a right to see your son. He's your son. You have that right. He is not a possession that you can own and control. Neither is your wife when you were married. If you ever marry again, I doubt you're going to find a woman in this day and age who wants to be someone that's told what she can do and how high that she has to jump if you tell her to jump. That alone in some marriages would probably get something thrown at you. But in any event, I understand that you say was a terrible example of your life that you didn't, that's not representative of who you are. Well, it's representative of who you are as far as I know, because that's what I heard out of your own mouth. And what I observed today is you trying to rehabilitate yourself with your testimony. But Mrs. Gman needs to understand that he is the father of this child that she chose to have a child with, and that he's going to have a right to see the child. It's just a question of one thing. I only care about one thing in this case, and that's the best interest of your son. I don't care about your situation or your rights. I don't care about your situation and your rights. I wish that the best interest of your son was the only thing that was the most important to the both of you, not proving how bad the other one is, but trying to find a way that you can go from there. Eventually, you're going to have to live with co-parenting this child when you're not together. You're going to have to share time with this child. And right now, Mrs. Gman says she can't trust you. I'm going to tell you one thing that's going to happen. I have guns. I have a handgun carry permit. I've been through the same program you have. Even though the law allows me as a judge to carry a gun, I went through the handgun carry permit long ago. I like guns. I grew up with guns. But I would never carry a gun to a visitation with a minor child. If you have a gun when you have a child around, and I know you think at 2 years of age they can get into anything. So an article where a child of about 2 or 4 years old was driving their parents' car down the road, had a wreck or got stopped, I think. So it's amazing what children can get into. But one thing that's going to happen from this point forward is that no one involved in any of this visitation is going to have a gun in their possession unless they are a uniformed police officer. You have guns anytime else other than that you want. But we're not going to have guns to intimidate anyone. The picture that I've seen here of you, Mr. Gman, with that gun stuck in the back of your pants, it wasn't hidden. And I understand why you say you needed it. Well, what were you going to do? Have a shootout in the church with your son present? You needed a gun to carry for your protection so that you could shoot it out with her father who had a gun? It's representative of what's wrong with this country today, in a way. It's also representative of what's wrong in your particular situation. There is no trust between the two of you. There is so much anger and animosity between the two of you that both of you want to trash the other one and talk about how terrible they were when you're the person who chose them to get married to. From this point forward, you both need to start thinking about one thing and one thing only, and that is, how can I make my child's life the best it can be? And if you will think about that and put your child's best interest first, stop trying to be negative towards each other. And I will say this, I'll tell you, my daughter's going to kill me for this. I let my children watch television pretty much like anybody else was when they were younger. My daughter was about 4 or 5 years old, maybe about 4. We had a house on West College Street that had a beautiful swing on it. One day, summer day, we're sitting out there, and she's sitting on the swing beside of me. And all of a sudden, I saw her slap her arm like that. And I look over and she says, "I got the little bastard." And it struck me, and it stunned me. It was hilarious, but it was discomforting as well. So what I'm telling you that for is this. You can deal with a situation without dropping an F-bomb every other time, because what's going to happen is when you send this little boy off to school, you're going to get a note back that says your son was dropping an F-bomb in class to one of his classmates, because that's what he hears. You're his father. He wants to be like you. Trust me, he will. And he's your mom. He trusts what you do. If y'all want to keep using that kind of language, then that's your choice. There's no law that says you can't do it, but that's the environment you create for your child. And what he sees and how he sees you two interacting with each other, how you treat each other and how you talk to each other, that's what he learns is a good relationship. That's how he is going to then pattern his future relationships with. Audio recording that I heard of you, Mr. Gman, or the things that I hear, that you said and done. If you want him to grow up and do that exact thing, same thing with his spouse, just keep doing it, because he's going to learn it from you and he's going to pattern his life after you. On the contrary, if you treat each other with kindness, despite you may hate each other's guts, but if you, in front of your child, treat each other with kindness and you talk to them in a respectful tone when you're dealing with each other, then I think you'll find that your son can grow up and have every event in his life as normal as any other child. Otherwise, when you two feel the way you do about each other right now, think about it. When he gets into a middle school or graduates from school, you both like to be there, I assume. Think about the anxious and nerves that your son's going to have and how he's going to be upset because mom and dad hate each other so much. You'll ruin every major event in your child's life if you don't change what you're doing towards one another. Now, Mr. Gman says he's gone through these anger management classes and things like that. One of the reasons I'm having psychological evaluations, not for one, but for both, is because sometimes it's hard to know who's telling the truth. Within 48 hours, both of these parties are going to undergo a nail bed drug test, and they'll find a place to do it. And I'm saying that now because I don't know if they're open on Saturdays or not, but I intend for them to both undergo a nail bed drug test to have those results will be forwarded to the court and copies to the lawyers. We'll just see whether or not that shows up. The nail bed is, my understanding, the nail bed test from other cases is the most reliable, and it goes back the farthest and gives the most accurate results. Mr. Holly and Ms. Hendrickson can find a place that they can send you to. I don't know exactly if Workforce Essentials does them or not, but I think we'll have to find where they can be done, because that's the type of test I think I'm going to order. Hair follicle testing can be falsified, so can urine testing. So we're looking for something that would be more accurate without being falsified. I've talked to you both pretty strongly. We're going to come back tomorrow morning and we'll go from there, and I'll hear anything else you got to hear until 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. And then we're done. I'm not going to give you another day on a temporary hearing. You finish it tomorrow, or we'll stop where you are at that point.